Good morning, honorable members. Let's take time for a silent prayer or meditation. Amen.
Amen.
Honorable members, Deputy Speaker of the Legislature, it is with profound sadness that we formally note the passing away of Councillor Nyameka Goniwe, the Speaker of Inxuba Yethemba local municipality in Cradock, who passed on Saturday after a short illness. She was the widow of Matthew Goniwe, one of the Cradock Four. Matthew Goniwe fought Talata, Spero Mkhonto, and Sicelo Mhlawuli, known as the Cradock Four, were brutally murdered near Port Elizabeth by members of the security branch of the SA Police 34 years ago. We also note the passing on of Mr. Glenn and Mrs. Vita Rafeti, a couple shot dead in a KZN farm attack in Normandin, near Newcastle. The couple was killed on Saturday evening. We note the passing on of Mr. Comfort Zibusengidi, former post office chair and KwaZulu-Natal legal mind, who passed away on Saturday evening in hospital after contracting COVID-19. Mr. Enoch Zimba Ngobo, an ANC provincial organizer who was also laid to rest on Sunday, the 30th of August. Dr. MJ Maseko, Director, Integrated Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation from the Community Safety and Liaison Department Head Office. Dr. Maseko passed away on Tuesday, 25th of August 2020 after a short illness. He was laid to rest on Friday, the 28th of August 2020. Nathaniel Julius, a teenager who lived with Down's syndrome and who was allegedly shot and killed by police in El Dorado Park on Wednesday, the 26th of August 2020. Mr. Mduduzi Mvubu, ANC KZN Media Liaison Officer and former journalist, who passed on Sunday, the 23rd of August. He worked for Ilanga newspaper, the Daily Sun and Sunday Sun, before joining the ANC's Department of Information and Publicity. We also note all those that have passed on as a result of gender-based violence in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, including the 7th body found in Umthwalume. All those who passed through road fatalities in the province of KwaZulu-Natal in the recent past and nationally. Those who have succumbed to the COVID-19 pandemic over the recent past. And I call upon all of us, honorable members, to observe a moment of silence in honor of the departed soul. May their souls rest in peace.
Amen.
Honorable members, allow me to remind on the ruling on virtual sittings. You are therefore reminded that this virtual sitting will be conducted in terms of the rules for virtual meetings read with our existing standing rules. In terms of Rule 6 of the rules for virtual meetings, the quorum required for virtual sittings of the House are provided for in the Constitution and the standing rules of the KZN Legislature. Standing Rule 44 of the standing rules provides as follows. At least 1/3 of all the members of the legislature must be present to constitute a plenary meeting of the legislature. The rules for virtual meetings also define present as follows. Present means the attendance of a member in a virtual meeting by electronic means in a manner that allows the member to join and participate in the meeting. Honorable members, the Secretary has confirmed that we have the required 1/3 of members present in order to commence with the virtual sitting. The sitting, therefore, is properly constituted. There is no matter which will require voting today. Allow me, honorable members, to present the apologies that we have received and processed. The first apology is that of the Honorable Premier, Mr. S. Zikalala, who is requesting to be excused between 11 and 11:40 to receive a memorandum from NEHAU as the Premier, which is a national event that is happening across provinces. Honorable PM Zuma, the Chief Whip, who is having a family bereavement. Honorable S.E. Hlomuka, MEC Cocta, to leave the sitting early due to an urgent government commitment to attend to in Emajuba. Honorable members, there are also members of the House who have been reported ill and that we must keep in our prayers. Honorable S.E. Manqele of the ACDP is not well. Honorable M.E. Pakati of the ATM is still not well, and therefore the two members will not be in the House today. Let's continue to have them in our prayers as the family of the legislature. Honorable members, I also want to take this opportunity to wish the following honorable members happy birthday in advance. The Honorable MEC for Public Works and Human Settlements, Umabela, Honorable NP Ngonyeni, whose birthday will be on the 8th of September. The Honorable Whip of the Democratic Alliance, Ujwaha, Honorable F.A. Rogers, whose birthday will be on the 10th of September. Honorable Siswa Kwataza, the Deputy Chief Whip, Honorable VP Kaluza, whose birthday will be on the 13th of September. We wish them well. May their birthdays be all that they wish and want them to be. Honorable members, we are now on alert level 2. It is comforting to note from the President, scientists and practitioners that the pandemic is taking a downward trajectory. However, this does not mean that we must be complacent and have a carefree attitude towards the virus. All precautionary measures remain in place and should be adhered to at all times. We will forever be indebted to all frontline workers who continue to render healthcare during this time. As members, we must continue to encourage people to observe and strictly adhere to level 2 disaster regulations that are currently applicable. We must, honorable members, remember that the virus is still there and we must protect ourselves and the communities. Also, honorable members, I urge those that are still outstanding, I urge to submit disclosure of financial interests. We are reminded that the deadline has passed where these forms were due on the 30th of April 2020. And you know that you must contact the legal services manager, Mr. Sukraj, on the given numbers. Now, honorable members, let's move to item number 4 on announcements or reports by the Premier. Honorable Premier, may we give you the opportunity to make announcements?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the KwaZulu-Natal has been engulfed by a pall of gloom due to a number of deaths that have taken place. You have alluded, Honorable Speaker, to some of these, and may I take this opportunity to add: 1, That one of the passing on of the former South African National Defence Force Sergeant General Dr. V.J. Ramlakan, who was part of the butterfly unit of Umkhonto weSizwe and rose to the rank of being a Sergeant General of the South African Defence Force and served the presidency since the time of former President Nelson Mandela. Honorable Speaker, while we have also paid our condolences on the passing on of the couple in Newcastle in Normandy, Miss Glenn and Vida Ravetta, we would want to report to this House that the killings that are taking place in farm areas are of concern to all of us. Because of that, the provincial government, through the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, led by MEC Tole Mloyi, will convene an urgent dialogue to engage on the spike of farm killings next week, Thursday, and this is expected to be attended by all sectors, by all stakeholders in this sector. Honorable Speaker, our next announcement is on Umkhosi Womhlanga, and on behalf of the provincial government, we would like to announce that His Majesty the King will host the annual event of Umkhosi Womhlanga to address, among others, the scourge of gender-based violence. We pay tribute to his always been a shining light and for his wisdom in leading us as the province of KwaZulu-Natal in this country. Umkhosi Womhlanga will be held on the 5th and will be taking place virtually, while there will be not more than 30 maidens who will be in a new game. We wish to take this opportunity to announce as well that we are attending to the plight of the artists who yesterday demonstrated in the N2 highway. We noted the protest and blockade of N2 highway due to the frustration suffered by our artists. We understand their plight and suffering, but we want to emphasize that that does not justify disrupting the busiest highway in the province. We will, however, be engaging with artists on how to mitigate their sufferings, and the Department of Art and Culture will be leading us in this engagement. Honorable Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Premier. We will move on to tablings. Honorable members, Deputy Speaker, we have received the following tablings from the Office of the Chairperson of Committees, the quarterly report on implementation of resolutions for the first quarter 2020-21. From the Standing Committee on Quality of Life and Status of Women, Children, Youth, Elderly, and People with Disabilities, we have received the Quality of Life Standing Committee 2020 Youth Month report. From the Health Portfolio Committee, we have received the 2020-21 Health Institutions Functionality Monitoring Program, the second Health Functionality Monitoring Program of the 6th Democratic Parliament, and a provincial report of the second Health Functionality Monitoring Program, 24 to 26 June 2020. From the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, we've received the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development Revised Annual Performance Plan 2020-21, Department of Arts and Culture, Department of Arts and Culture Revised Annual Performance Plan 2020-21, Received the Department of Health a revised annual performance plan 2020-21 and strategic plan 2020-21 to 2024-25. Are there any other tablings that may not be recorded here that honorable members want to make? Are there any? Seeing that there is none, let us move. We will move to item number 6 on formal motions or notices by the Chief Whip. Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I'd like to move a motion without notice for the House to adopt a resolution to establish an ad hoc committee to conduct oversight over investigations conducted in the provincial departments and public entities. This motion is a motion without notice, understanding Rule 97G, with the unanimous concurrence of all members present. The presiding officer is requested to put the motion to vote for adoption as a resolution of the House, understanding Rule 95(2). Noting that Standing Rule 1971 provides that an ad hoc committee may be established by resolution of the House, that the Standing Committee on Public Accounts has recommended that the House establish an ad hoc committee to conduct oversight over investigations conducted in provincial departments and public entities. The House adopted this recommendation on the 23rd of July 2020. The House resolved that an ad hoc committee is established for a period of 12 months to oversee the progress and finalization of all forensic and other internal and external investigations conducted in provincial departments and public entities in KwaZulu-Natal that are in progress at the time of the establishment of the committee, and the implementation of all recommendations emanating from such investigations and from investigations that were concluded before the establishment of the committee, in accordance with the terms of reference attached here to as Annexure A. Political parties must appoint the members of the ad hoc committee as provided for in Standing Rule 131(1) within 7 working days of the establishment of the committee. The Secretary must convene the first meeting of the ad hoc committee as provided for in Standing Rule 136 within 7 working days of the appointment of the committee members. The ad hoc committee, before it commences business, must elect one of its members as chairperson, as provided for in Standing Rule 134(1)(b). The ad hoc committee has all the powers listed in Standing Rule 141. In terms of Standing Rule 142(1)(ai), the ad hoc committee must report to the House and to the Standing Committee on Public Accounts every 3 months. The first report will be tabled within 3 months from the date of the establishment of the committee, and the final report to be tabled at the end of the 12-month period. Standing Rule 1281 does not apply to the ad hoc committee. Subject to the express terms of this resolution, all provisions of the standing rules pertaining to portfolio committees, read with changes required by circumstances, apply to the ad hoc committee. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Whip. May I take concurrence with the motion? IFP? Is there any party that has a different view to the motion?
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable O.B. Kunene?
Yeah, I support the motion.
Okay. DA?
Speaker.
I don't know what's happening with your sound, Honorable Rogers.
It's sabotage, Speaker. Hold on.
But I think it's
Speaker, the DA supports the motion.
Oh, okay. Oh, I captured you. EFF, are you there? I'm checking concurrence,
Hello.
Honorable Member.
Bahlale bengekho labo.
I can hear a member of the EFF. I can hear a member of the EFF speaking at the back, but I can't pick up what's the name of the member speaking.
It's
Yes, Honorable Koza. Yes, Mkhathini.
yes, the EFF concurs.
Okay. Thank you, Mkhathini.
Ikundile mambani. Kundile.
Imnyama ngenkani.
I can hear at the back I'm just checking concurrence, honorable members. At the back. NFP, are you there? MF, are you there?
Yes, Honorable Speaker. Yes, sir. The minority concurs with this motion. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Honorable Thakur Rajpans. You were speaking, Honorable Mlotshwa, at the back.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, the motion is being supported.
Thank you. The House, the Chief Whip had put the motion. Can I get concurrence from the ANC?
The ANC supports, Speaker.
Okay, the House has adopted the motion and we will process the formation of the ad hoc as per the rules. In terms of the standing rules of the House, we will be processing that. Now we will move to the next item. The next item is item number 7 on the order paper, which is a debate on the report by the MEC for Finance on the third quarter consolidated statement of municipalities budget. And the first speaker for 7 minutes is Honorable MPP Zungu. Honorable Zungu for 7 minutes. Honorable MPP Zungu. Whilst I request assistance by members, I also request assistance by party whips. You know the order paper and you also know your speakers. So if we get our speakers in line, you know who's your following speaker. Those are our responsibility in terms of discipline in parties. Honorable MPP Zungu.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Hello?
Your time has started when you were saying thank you, Honorable Chair. Your 7 minutes started.
I'm sorry, Speaker. Honorable members, I take this opportunity to debate the third quarter reports on the state of municipalities presented by Honorable MSc Ravi. The report is tabled shortly after we conclude the commemorative month of women whose heroic efforts were the building blocks of our society, who watered our democracy with their sweat and tears, whose legacy and place in struggle for liberation is etched in stone. The commemoration of these magnificent, brilliant creatures is characterized and permeated the month of August, led by the government of the ANC. Although we have concluded the month of August with her signature message, violence against women has unfortunately not ceased. Women continue to live in fear. The lives of women continue to perish in the hands of their partners. The mutilated and charred bodies of women continue to be discovered in sugarcane of Mthwalu. The genocide of women has not stopped with the month of August and her awareness programs. Hence, the message and the call to fight and end gender-based violence is timeless and should be echoed all year round in the corridors of the legislature that has prescribed to itself the character of being an activist and people-centered legislature. Our message, therefore, endures with notwithstanding the positive developments on these issues, including the apprehension of the suspects in these crimes and the visit of the Premier and the MSC to the bereaved families. We further call a quick and harsh action to law enforcement agencies against all who perpetuate violence against women. Honorable Speaker, allow me to get to the crux of today's debate on a very important issue of operating revenue and expenditure, repairs and maintenance in municipalities. However, I strongly feel that we need to remind all members of this House that we are still adapting to a new normal, which is not of our own making, but we find ourselves there. In this midst of the global pandemic, we must applaud the meaningful and collective work done by government to fight this pandemic, and also commend the ANC for sterling work it continues to execute through its deployees in government. We are going to speak about work done up until it sinks to the counter-revolution that we have resorted to uproot the wrongdoings that are emerging in our government, deal with them decisively, to the extent that the criminal cases must be opened against those who continue to do wrong. The ANC has made a correct determination to say the corrupter, the middleman, and the corruptee must be arrested, and indeed our rights are seen and felt in this regard. Hence, the President of the Republic and the Premier of our province have announced such decisive action. We must encourage good work also done by our Treasury Department, led by Mr. Pillay, Honorable Pillay, and the entire dedicated Finance Committee on the sterling work under these difficult conditions. Honorable Chair and the MSC, it is very important to appreciate and encourage excellent financial outlook of the municipalities at a local and district level. This inadvertently encourages even the badly financial performing municipalities to improve their financial standing of the institution, as it indicates that the meticulous financial management is an attainable target. All that is required is a capable, qualified, and conscious public servant with experience to have sound financial management. This cannot be overstated. We must understand that the capacity of the municipalities are not equal. Some of the municipalities can generate bulk revenue. Some, especially those in rural areas of our province, generate little or nothing at all. They depend solely on grants. Chair and members of this Oversight, let me refer you to the Municipal Finance Management third quarter review that will be 2019 and 20, presented by Treasury. The top three municipalities that collected well operating revenue are eThekwini Metro with 26.7 billion, King Cetshwayo at 4 billion, and Mpumalanga District at 3.4 billion. Operating revenue generated by these municipalities against their respective adjustment budget exceeded the benchmark. Except for Mpumalanga District Municipality. We also have unaudited revenue as at the end of the third quarter, and they are largely funded by grants. Again, the Municipal Finance Management third quarter review categorically show us that clearly that even the operating expenditure of our municipality won't be in uniform. It will vary according to their budgeting process and prioritization of public funds. The operating expenditure can expose the use of public funds by the municipalities. The municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal spend 60% of all total adjusted budget. Honorable Speaker of the House, we need to look at an employee-related cost, which contributed 31% of the mentioned operating expenditure. Critically, we must address the concern that employee-related costs and councillors' remuneration as percentage of operating expenditure exceeds the norm, which is in the range of 25 and 40% as Municipal Finance Management Act Circular number 71 dictates. On repairs and maintenance expenditure, it is worth noting that most districts scored below the projected 70%. That includes Ithegu, which is rated at 63, with the exception of Zululand that has gone beyond the targeted point, which was 100%, with 5.2%. Mpumalanga, Ilembe, Herigwala, and Mpumalanga district performed badly, ranging between 20.9 to 48.8%. Other districts had decreased their adjusted budget for repairs and maintenance, except Majuba district, did not make any change on their budget and repairs and maintenance. Honorable Speaker, we need to emphasize that the low expenditure on repairs and maintenance can be an indication that the municipalities lack either maintenance plan or are experiencing cash flow challenges, or it could be the asset repairs plan that are not there. Therefore, unable to spend on an appropriate levels on repairs and maintenance, which has a very bad impact in the service delivery. These issues need to be addressed soon with urgency. As I conclude, Chair, we know the shortcomings of the depicted in the financial performance and municipalities across the board.
Honorable Member. Honorable Zungu.
Yes.
Your time.
I was almost 7 minutes.
Your time is remember.
So Khalil.
The next speaker is
15 minutes.
Honorable L.J. de Klerk of the IFP for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. In a time of crisis, one needs leaders with courage and leaders that will do the extraordinary. Our country is in a crisis, and I'm not only referring to the COVID pandemic, but I'm also referring to a crisis of inefficient, ill-disciplined and corrupt municipalities. Listening to the MEC for Finance speech on the 6th of August, it is clear that there is no hope and that we must fear the future. The situation reminds one of the well-known expression that an Emperor Nero fiddled while Rome was burning. We all see our towns and cities burning, but we do nothing to extinguish the fire. The Auditor General released the 2018-19 audit outcomes for local government. He pointed out an undesirable picture of billions of rands in funds allocated to municipalities being managed in ways that are contrary to the prescripts and recognized accounting disciplines, and that this makes for a very weak accountability and the consequence exposure of the public purse. In the KZN, there was little change in the audit outcomes. Accountability was not adequately practiced and enforced by leadership. Most district municipalities continues to struggle with basic, and I repeat, basic financial and performance management processes, and displayed a lack of responsiveness to implement and monitor action plans, and had weak governance structures that did not enable effective accountability. Poor leadership affected governance and discipline, and more focus must be placed on political oversight. Irregular expenditure ballooned to a 6.5 billion in the province, with eThekwini being the highest in the country, with eThekwini being the highest in South Africa, with 2.34 billion. Hooray for eThekwini. We are debating a report that is compromised. Under the introduction, it is stated, it should be noted that the municipalities did not upload all the required data strings for the 1920 financial year, resulting in distorted information for the quarter under review, further stating that the finance performance information in this report is not credible. We are thus debating an unreliable report. How's that for problems? By March 2020, KZN municipalities' operating revenue was 5% short of the projection. I shudder to think what impact the COVID-19 pandemic will have on the fourth quarter. During this quarter, we were expected to spend 75% of capital expenditure, but we reached for the stars and already stands at 155.9% of the adjusted budget. How's that? The South African average municipal financial sustainability index shows a constant decline in the sustainability in the province of municipalities, with our municipalities regressing from 52% in 2015 to 41% in 2019. So things are only getting worse. We know what is the main problem. All of us, we know it. It is cadre deployment. It causes poor leadership and even vacant posts as different internal political factions fight for their preferred candidate to be employed so that they can receive tenders. It is not enough to merely call upon politicians and civil servants to do the right thing and defeat the narrative of a corrupt and an inept state. It is not a narrative, Honourable MEC. It's a fact, and that the state is corrupt and inept. Those who you are calling up to be the vanguard for efficiency and prudency are the exact people that are corrupt and inefficient. They do not want to change. They all have vested interest. You will have to remove them. Only then will the situation change. There is no time to call upon people. It is time to act. Only then will the ANC be removed from being accused number one. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Honorable de Klerk, for sticking to time. The next, I apologize, Honorable Rogers. The next member is for 4 minutes, Honorable F.A. Rogers of the DA.
Diabulela Somlome, Mama. Municipalities and service delivery. That's where the rubber hits the road, and that's the coalface of what our people face when it comes to service delivery. It is where an ethical and capable state can indeed make a difference in the lives of people in our province. It is where a capable state will supply affordable, sustainable service delivery and the shelter that's needed to provide for the most vulnerable in our communities. In KwaZulu-Natal, however, nothing could be further from the truth. Local government, of all the spheres of government, is indeed a dismal failure. All you have to do is just check in the daily media, watch social media, listen to the people on the ground, listen to the people complain. Whether it's people living in informal settlements, or people in townships, or people in affluent communities, they all complain. The challenges may differ, but they all have constant challenges. For some, it might be the lack of basics, such as the lack of water. For some, interrupted electricity supply. For some, potholes. For some, irregular disconnections. And for some, questionable and illogical billing systems and accounts. It's there, Madam Speaker. It's in our face every single minute, every single hour of every single day of every single week. Don't listen to me. Listen to Kimi Makweto when he stated that there's been very little change in the latest audits in KwaZulu-Natal. Indeed, it's not a good story to tell. The reality is that we don't see any improvements. Year in and year out, the situation just worsens. The ANC do not seem to have the answers to the problem facing local government. Plenty of political rhetoric, such as back to basics, Operation Pay on Time, Operation Clean Audit, the list goes on and on and on, and nothing changes. Honourable MEC Pillay calls on us not to play petty politics and to rise above the occasion. I fully concur with your sentiments, Honourable Pillay. But then we need to acknowledge that we have a systemic problem at a local government here. And the key player, as the ruling party in the province, is part of the problem. The AG found that 98% of municipalities did not comply with crucial government legislation. Most district municipalities continue to struggle with basic financial management processes. Service providers wait an average of 109 days to be paid. What happened to Operation Pay on Time? Irregular expenditure increased by 124% to 6.5 billion rand. What happened to Operation Clean Audit? The province is spending up to 95 million rand on consultants to prepare statements, even though there are officials out there who are in fact paid to do this task. In your address, MEC Pillay, you made the comment that we have great talent and potential in our province. I couldn't agree more with you. The question is, why are we not using this talent? Why do you continue to appoint incompetent officials at local government? Having been in local government myself, it's evident now that according to the AG that many of our municipalities and CFOs are quite frankly incompetent, earning great salaries but unable to fulfill their duties.
Thank you. The next member for 3 minutes is Honorable LG Seja of the EFF.
No, thank you very much, Speaker. Greetings to all members, Kakula's EFF leadership. Our first point of departure is the sustainability risks in a context of low growth and high government borrowing rates. We are hearing very little contribution to this effect as far as policy shifts to address this imminent problem. Organizationally, our greatest concern rests with the municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal reported having generated operating revenue amounting to 48.8 billion, which is 70.7% of the adjusted budget of 69 billion below the expected straight line projection of 75%, lower in comparison to the operating revenue of 72.5 generated in the third quarter of the previous financial year. An indicator that municipalities are failing to function at capacity and that the agency is failing to make municipalities function efficiently. Most disappointingly, during this reporting period, the municipalities in the province have been reckless, having spent more than 75% of the 16.1 billion adjusted budget for capital expenditure. In fact, it is recorded that municipalities have spent 25.2 billion, or which significantly exceeded the available budget. Substantively, capital expenditure increased by 18.6 billion, a concern in a province still ridiculed with such a poor repair and maintenance history and corruption. The Provincial Treasury must account for why the Umzwabandu and Upongolo local municipalities did not report on repairs and maintenance, as well as provide a comprehensive explanation for why Mkanyawute, Umgundu of Herikwal and Ilembe district reported the lowest expenditure for repairs and maintenance. A lack of investment in repairs and maintenance is a positive sign of degradation in service delivery, and lack of work in improving internal capacity. There is a grave concern over the lack of debt collection in the province of KZN. At the end of the third quarter of 2019-2020, a total of 22.6 billion is owed to municipalities in the province, especially since a total of 18.1 billion of the debt was in the over 90 days category. With all the corruption and maladministration that has plagued eThekwini Metro, we are not surprised to note that it reported the highest amount of 13 billion, followed by the Utuwela district, Amajuba district at 1.7 billion, and the Umgungundlovu district at 1.3 billion, with 33.3% of the debt owed relating to water, followed by property rates at 6.3 billion, and electricity. The province must consider more stringent
Honorable Member, thank you. Your time is up. Your time is up, Honorable. The next member for 1 minute is Honorable VR Mlochwa of the NFP.
Somlomo, as the NFP agree and support the call made by the MEC, the revenue of 70.7% generated by the municipalities was below the expected straight line projection of 75%, and it is also lower to the operating revenue of 72.5 generated in the third quarter of the previous financial year. This can be due to not fully utilizing the budgeted funds, as the operating expenses were 60% of the adjusted budgeted funds, which is also below the baseline of 75%. How is it possible to have an operating surplus of 6.9 billion while there were issues related to poor municipal service delivery in most municipalities? Capital expenditure is reported that is significantly exceeded the available budget of 16.1 billion by 9.1 billion, of which the figures high. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The next member is Honorable Esther Rajpanzi of the MF for 1 minute.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I thank the Honourable MEC Ravi Pillai for this report. Looking at the report on the rural bias, it questions the Back to Basics program, and which had come about in 2014, and the motto was serving our communities better. The concern with respect to change management in this report is a reality, and therefore, Honourable MEC, consolidation of the municipalities that are badly managed is imperative. These require moment-by-moment management and on-site mentorship or coaching during this crisis period. So our recommendation is let's recall some people who have experience even from retirement to do this. These interventions are practical suggestions because not following legal frameworks for accounting purposes means that our monitoring managers who are senior managers are weak. Hence, we will obtain bad evaluations from the AG. I know that when people are accommodated to fit a job, we end up regretting these decisions like we're doing today. We have to now ensure that job descriptions fit people in future. Thank you.
Honourable member. The next member for 1 minute is Honourable M.E. Pakati of the ATM. He is not in the House. The next member is Honourable S.E. Manqele of the ACDP for 1 minute. He is also not in the House. Therefore, the next member will be for 7 minutes, the Honourable S.C. Nkosi of the ANC. Honourable Nkosi.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, for allowing us to speak. And we are speaking, revoking the spirit of Harry Gwala, our own leader, our teacher, our educator, the revolutionary and the Stalinist. A great man indeed. Honourable Speaker, I need to point out that all Section 71 reports tabled by different MECs for finance disturb a lot in certain areas, because in those areas there is very little that have changed. What I'm focusing on is on the issue of debt management, which remains a thorn in the flesh of all our municipalities. By 31st March 2020, the figures were given by the MECs, and I don't want to repeat them, which indicates that we are not doing well in that particular area. And I just decided to focus on the 90 days because they've got the potential of being written off. And there is a huge amount around the question of property rates, water, and bulk electricity. Honourable Speaker, before I continue with my debate, I think I need to correct Honourable de Klerk. It is my own understanding as a senior person in this House to indicate that it is only the ANC as a party that I know that has come out openly to condemn corruption. Inkatha corruption in Zululand is shielded by the leadership of Inkatha. You remember the water that was poured out in the field. These are the things that they don't want to talk about. On the question of Honourable Rogers, I know he was a bit irrelevant. He decided to speak about the audits for 2018-2019 when we were debating the third quarter. He had to be specific, as a former teacher. If I was marking his essay, I will just write irrelevant. On Honourable Sitja, I hope an Honourable MEC will get an opportunity of correcting him. The operational budget for municipalities is not 69 billion. He must go back and read his figures. Otherwise, I don't want to comment on him because he decided to play on the gallery, like the two honourable members who decided to do so. Honourable Speaker, it is worth noting that in 2018-2019 financial year, all our municipalities had to were owed more than 20.2 billion rand. Out of that, it shows an increase in the following year, where it increased in the third quarter of 2019-2020 by more than 2.4 billion rand. And the culprits in this are the municipalities that the MEC for Finance manage in this House. Honorable Speaker, would wanted to indicate that there seems to be something running short in local government, where consequence management that we are seeing Honorable Premier implementing, but we are not seeing the same on the ground. Somlom, one wonders if honest efforts are made in this sphere of government as far as debt collection is concerned. As I have indicated, all those things that are not going on there. The problem is around the issues of correct billing, as well as the compilation of the unrealistic indigent policy, registers in this particular area. Honorable Speaker, I am also convinced that our municipalities are not doing well in credit management. You can see the huge amounts, billions of rands that these municipalities are owing. I just chose to the category of 30 days, where they are owing more than 1.8 billion rand. And beyond the 30 days to 60 days, it comes to about 2.4 billion rand. This is a very high amount, which is related to trade, electricity, and loan payments, which stand in such a huge amount of money. We would want to sensitize our own municipalities that the failure to pay their debts, those graduates to fruitless and wasteful expenditure, which the MFMA is talking about, which is punishable by law. Honorable Speaker, on the conditional grants as well, we want to indicate that we think that we are not doing well. This is the area that is a sore flesh in my own mind, where I talk about the 5.6 billion rand, which was reported to have been spent during the third quarter. But when municipalities were reporting, they indicated 12.4 billion rand, where they included some of the things that needed not to be dealt with there, which says that there is incorrect information that persists to be supplied by the local government when it comes to accountability. Honorable Speaker, let me conclude by restating the resolution of the Finance Portfolio Committee taken during the 5th Parliament, which is still relevant today. It talks about the meeting some intransigent municipalities before going to quarterly report debates in the House. Soon after the tabling of the report by the MEC for Finance, the Finance Committee researcher must embark on its thorough analysis. The aim would be to identify areas of weakness so that those municipalities are confronted head-on in order to be shown the errors and be assisted by the Finance Portfolio Committee. It can't be the Finance Portfolio Committee alone, according to what Kimi Mawetu indicated in the House. I am convinced that the Finance Committee, SCOPA, as well as COCTA portfolio committees can play a role in assisting our municipality. When we go there, we don't go there as big brothers and big sisters. We are coming there to point out the shortcomings and then come up with advice on how to correct those shortcomings. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for allowing the ANC to speak. We won't play to the gallery. We speak issues as they are, which are confirmed by the third quarter. Thank you very much, Somlo.
Thank you, Honorable Nkosi. The next speaker is Honorable, the response by the MEC for Finance to the debate for 5 minutes. Let's welcome Honorable MEC R.R. Pillay. MEC. MEC Pillay.
Kubalekile. Lezuthi kuyashisa.
Ukupholeka ngabokupholiwe nje akutatazelo.
Yena Mthombeni, akhulumi nawe mina.
I'm talking to you, Nzima.
MEC Pillay is in the house, is still muted. MEC Pillay, it's your opportunity to take the podium. I can see that MEC Pillay is attended, but his mic is muted. Can you unmute yourself, MEC?
Yes, Loopy Network,
Usayope, mangani kuvulukwai.
Ah, come on, bakwethu, I'm discipline.
Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable.
Honorable Zavi is connected, yes, but he's getting. Honorable
back now.
Speaker. Oh, he's fine now. He's back.
I think I'm back.
MEC Pillay, is that you?
Yes, can you hear me, Speaker?
Yes, I can hear you. Then there
Can
was
you hear me, Speaker?
a female voice.
I can see you, but
we can hear you. Siyakuzwa Mhlonishwa. Honorable Pillay.
No, I think it's fine, Speaker. If I can be heard, I can proceed, but I must apologize. I must apologize that I've been having connection problems in time. Can I proceed?
Yes, Honorable MEC.
Thank you. Let me thank all the speakers who have spoken on this very important debate. It's not going to be possible in 5 minutes to give an appropriately detailed response. But let me just comment on a few things that speakers have actually mentioned. Let me thank Honorable Zungu firstly for her contextualizing the current condition in the context of the pandemic. And as much as all the difficulties we may be having, it is irrefutable that the response of our government to the pandemic and COVID-19 has been quite exceptional by every international standard, and we must give credit where credit is due. That's not to underplay the challenges that have emerged, especially around the functionality of our systems and the issue of corruption, which our president has taken an exemplary lead, and I think the governing party is walking the talk at the moment, and I think all reasonable South Africans can see that, are inspired by it, and want to support the president and the leadership and our premier, who has been quite outstanding in leading in this province and in that particular fight. I want to point out that we were the earliest to identify and conduct investigations into 2 issues in DSD, conclude those investigations, and commence with consequence management through the MEC for DSD, who was very, very efficient in implementing that consequence management and setting the standard for us going forward in terms of speedy. I think Honorable Zungu, again, there's many points that she picked up, but I just want to applaud her zooming in onto the repairs and maintenance issue. And that requires focused oversight by all of us on the repairs and maintenance aspect, whether they are budgeting correctly and whether they are actually implementing it. Honorable Speaker, I don't know if your facial expression is suggesting that you are not hearing me, or am I fine? I'm going to proceed irrespective. Honorable de Klerk, I think, yes, I agree with you that it requires courage and bold leadership. But let's be honest that some parts of our problems are fairly objective, in the sense that even the municipalities run by the IFP, Ulundi is not in the best financial health at the moment. Ulundi has issues with ESCOM payments, Ulundi has issues with regard to its being a going concern. But Kulusi is not in the best shape as well. So it's a common problem where even municipalities run by the IFP have issues which we must jointly be determined to address. Honorable Rogers, I agree with you that we are going to really walk the talk on building the ethical and capable state. But again, let's not be holier than thou in respect of many things. I mean, the city of Cape Town just this week, I think, or just a few days ago, had a decision set aside by the court where it sought to take prime land in the city and give it to a private, almost a private school, I think it was, whereas the people out there were wanting that land to be for the historically marginalized and the poor for social housing. So that's the kind of policy differences and incorrect focuses that we will have differences on. So it's a little bit disingenuous to take a holier than thou approach. However, the points you raise about municipalities receiving serious attention, about inefficiencies, about capacity, about vacancies, about incompetent people in certain cases, we agree. That's part of our analysis as well, and it is something that we're going to have to deal with. Honorable Seja, I'm not going to be able to deal with you in detail, but the one point I always try to pick on things that we agree upon. And when you talk about the economic performance at local level, that's the critical issue. Local government is going to have to be much bigger in its performance towards economic recovery. And when we engage with organized business and organized labor, they are telling us these are the simple things that they need to be stabilized at municipalities in order for the economy to operate. And that relates to water, it relates to electricity, and often it relates to basic stability at the level of the municipalities. Honorable Mlotshwa, Honorable Rajbansi, and Honorable KK, who I thank you for your contributions, and Honorable KK in his usual concise way has summarized the work that needs to be done. I want to focus on his proposal for a joint approach between the Finance Committee, SCOPA, and COCTA. I think that's a critical suggestion. Thank you. That's a critical suggestion to intensify the oversight and avoid duplication. I can also say that we are about to finalize a memorandum of understanding between Provincial Treasury and Provincial COCTA. So we also avoid overlaps and duplications and focus and have a joint focus on key areas. Chair, I will shortly be, within the next month, be tabling the fourth quarter, where I hope the figures will be more reliable. But even though they might be unreliable in certain cases, as indicated by one of the members, the trends are clear. So we don't need to quibble on the detail. The trends, as far as the financial state of the municipalities, are quite clear. So when we deal with that fourth quarter report, I'm sure we'll be able to be more, in much more detailed about the MOU and the implementation plan, because we've got to go beyond lamenting, as our Premier often says, go beyond lamenting. We've done the analysis. Let's do what needs to be done. And I think we can have the support of all members in the House in dealing with these challenges.
Thank you, Honorable MEC. Thank you. Honorable members, so we've come to the end of that debate. Now we are going to the next debate, which is the debate on the June 2020 Health Institutions Monitoring Program. We will start with the report by the Chairperson of the Health Portfolio Committee on the Health Institutions Monitoring Program, Honorable N.R. Majola, for 20 minutes to table the report.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Majola, can you please, before we start with your time, may you please attend to your camera so that you are visible? Yes, and you can start.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, honorable members of the House, I am honored to be presenting the report of the second health functionality monitoring program of the 6th Democratic Parliament on behalf of the Speaker and Portfolio Committee on Health. The Portfolio Committee on Health has a constitutional mandate in terms of Section 114, subsection 2B of the Republic of South Africa, read with the Rule 122 of the KZN Provincial Legislature, to oversee the performance of the Department of Health and hold it accountable through various measures. It was for this reason that members of the KZN Legislature had to engage in the second health functionality monitoring program of the 6th Democratic Parliament. It must be noted that this was not a normal functionality monitoring program in which the legislature had to scrutinize the planned programs of the department. This time, it was more of a response to a crisis that no one has ever dreamt of. The world woke up in a shock of the pandemic that attacked human beings in an unprecedented speed. Be that as it may be, the work of the department and thus the oversight role of the legislature had to carry on. The unprecedented progress of COVID-19 pandemic and the increase in number of new cases per day prompted the KZN legislature to strengthen and augment its oversight over the Department of Health. Conducting its accountability function, it became more necessary to examine the performance of the Department of Health with programs pertaining to this pandemic. 106 healthcare facilities in the province were visited to assess COVID-19 management programs. We saw all members of the legislature forging ahead, committing themselves in ensuring that this functionality became a success. Even members who were supposed not to partake in the program due to comorbidities and age had to head to the call because more soldiers were required in the field, and we will always be grateful for that. Today, as of the 3rd of September 2020, KZN is the second largest with the laboratory confirmed COVID-19 cases. This, Honorable Speaker, shows that the strategies employed by the department to curb the spread of the virus are responding well. We are, however, saddened by the lives that we lost during this time. We all know, Honorable Speaker, that prior to COVID-19, our healthcare system was already under strain because of the communicable diseases such as the TB and HIV and AIDS. The department had to now manage this enormous burden of COVID-19 and its exponential growth. During the functionality monitoring program, we learned that proactive measures to prevent the spread of the virus were very critical. The department had programs in place, including promoting good hygiene, social distancing, discouraging large public gatherings, community screening, etc. But campaigns to educate the public on best practices were limited due to the nature of the pandemic. The department used various online platforms and various media platforms to educate the public about the management of the COVID-19 and with special focus to measures in place to curb the spread. Under human resources were at the core of it all, the frontline workers. Without human resources in the health sector, and during this time, the pandemic could have escalated in an unanticipated speed that could have resulted in the demise of more lives than what is currently perceived. Consequently, we would like to extend our utmost gratitude and appreciation to our frontline workers who, under various challenges that the health sector had, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, held their heads up and heed to the nurses' pledge of service. Our doctors, whose expertise were more critical than ever in understanding the disease in order to make critical decisions on the management of the patient, was also identified. I can see them putting their heads together in times of adversity. Both nurses and family members looked up to them to ensure the survival of the patient. Lest we forget the non-clinical staff who have supported the core, our general orderlies who played a critical role in infection and control measures. Without them, our health facilities would have been a breed for bacteria, germs, and many harmful microorganisms. The department reported that as at 23rd of August 2020, a total number of 5,885 healthcare workers were infected with COVID-19. Above 60% of the infected healthcare workers have recovered, and a certain percentage succumbed to the disease. The sad reality is that During the time when infected nurses are quarantined, they leave a huge gap in the care of patients. Those that succumb to the disease did not only leave a huge gap in patient care, but in their families, friends, and colleagues. May their souls rest in peace. We commend the department for contracting human resources for a period of 6 months and also promoting qualified staff nurses to professional nurses in various health facilities that we visited during the health functionality monitoring program. We have witnessed a number of additional nurses employed. It must be noted, though, Honorable Speaker, that there is still an outcry of the category of doctors. The issue relating to non-critical staff remains a challenge. While there is a general understanding that non-clinical staff is not as critical as some categories of the clinical staff, general orderlies remain key to curb the spread of infectious disease. It became clear in some facilities that even though there have been additional numbers of general orderlies, they are still not sufficient due to a long-term moratorium from the department. This, Honorable Speaker, is a thorny issue. Of critical significance was that in all healthcare facilities that were visited, human resources in all levels and categories were adequately trained and capacitated for testing and treating the virus. Doffing and donning of personal protective equipment was adequately trained for and done accordingly. Ongoing training and capacity development was adequately done. At the onset of the pandemic, there was a disruption to the global supply of personal protective equipment. This was caused by rising demand, panic buying, hoarding, and misuse. South Africa, and in particular KZN, was by no means an exception to this disruption, as it affected everyone globally. During the visit, it was reported that facilities had adequate supply of PPEs. Medical equipment is one of the key tools required during this pandemic. Honorable Speaker, it was noted that there were districts that reported shortages in either oxygen points or oxygen equipment. This was due to the delays in the procurement processes posed by lockdown regulations. It must be noted, though, that almost all these gaps were now being addressed, hoping that the procurement process would be much faster than before. The lockdown gave the department an opportunity to optimally stock up on personal protective equipment, procure medical equipment, organize wards and facilities, and prepare staff. The department had to carefully analyze the current state of their healthcare infrastructure and make meaningful investments to improve access to quality healthcare and thus provide operational beds to manage the situation. The department thus renovated some health facilities, established field hospitals, and had negotiations with the private health sector in order to increase bed capacity. Ebola isolation wards at Grace Hospital, Eddington Hospital, Manguzi Hospital, as well as Ngwelezana Hospital, were the first ones to be redesigned, renovated, and upgraded to accommodate the COVID-19 patients. Today, we see completed facilities such as Royal Agricultural Showground Field Hospital, the General Justice Izenga Mpanza Regional Field Hospital, Clarewood Field Hospital, and this is to mention but a few. Contracted private establishments include, but not limited to, the Montclair Lodge, Coastland Durban, City Lodge Durban, City Lodge Umhlanga, Coastland Umhlanga, Didima Resort, and more. Over 1,900 beds have been activated to the management of the COVID-19 in the province, with eThekwini being the highest. The department reported that beds would be activated based on demand and assessment of private facilities for sustainability in line with the national guidelines was in progress. While we commend the department for the infrastructure upgrades, a number of districts reported a number of infrastructural challenges to manage the pandemic. Some of the key infrastructural challenges, Honorable Speaker, include the shortage of space, lack of designated and designed wards to manage the COVID-19, lack of space for the establishment of upper respiratory tract infection clinics, old infrastructure, etc. Most of these challenges were resolved, Honorable Speaker, and as a portfolio committee, we would make a follow-up with the department in order to ensure that they are resolved, were to be resolved. We noted that facilities that were visited had all medical and support staff oriented on requirements of handling and management of general and clinical waste generated at the facility. lack of proper vehicles to collect waste from the primary healthcare facilities, and that some waste storages were not in compliance with regulations was noted in some facilities. The management of healthcare waste is an essential part of ensuring that healthcare activities do not pose risk of infection and are securely managed. It was for this reason that the department is urged to speed up the process of ensuring that matters relating to waste management are addressed and resolved. In conclusion, the regulations served its intended purpose of giving time for the department start to plan and prepare for the management of COVID-19. We applaud the country's strategy of screening and testing and encourage the department to keep up the good work, as screening and testing remains vital. While health security, reducing the vulnerability of society to pandemics like COVID-19, it is a distinct goal. It is interlinked with efforts to move towards universal health coverage. The national healthcare insurance, neither the universal health coverage nor health security can be achieved without the foundation of common goods for health produced through strong and resilient health systems. The crisis has laid bare this interdependence. Of great importance is that each district took resolutions which would be crucial for the Portfolio Committee as we continue with the deliberations during this time. The Portfolio Committee expects timeliest response to the resolution. The Health Functionality Monitoring Program has given a clear indication of the strides that the department has made. It also gave us an opportunity to identify gaps within the healthcare system. These gaps call for all of us as members of the KZN Legislature to work together to ensure the success of the management of the COVID-19 programs. Honorable Speaker, allow me to commend the hard work of the frontline healthcare workers who work tirelessly to ensure that lives are saved. COVID-19 pandemic has posed a lot of challenges in our healthcare sector, but these men and women soldiered on, and for that I salute them. To all those who have fallen along the way, may their souls rest in peace, and indeed good hearts have stopped beating and good souls ascended to heaven. I would also like to extend my gratitude to members of the legislature for their commitment to the Health Functionality Monitoring Program, of whom without the program would have not been a success. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Majola. I want, before I call the next speaker, I want to request honorable members to please, whenever they are addressing, keep their videos on. Don't switch them off when you have started speaking. The next speaker for 7 minutes is Honorable LXH Mazala of the ANC. Honorable LXH Mazala. You can switch your video off now.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, members of the Legislature. I would like to honor the Premier in our presence, the MEC and the leadership of the department. I also want to start off by greeting the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, who has delivered the report on behalf of the Oversight structure. Honorable Speaker and honorable members of the House, good morning. I am grateful to the Chairperson for allowing me this opportunity to participate in this debate. During our caucus meeting today, we heard from the MEC of Etia, in her capacity as the Treasurer of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, that there is a lot of work cut for us as ANC deploys in the legislature today and in the future to safely guard the democratic fundamentals jealously as we can. One of those democratic fundamentals, Honorable Speaker, is justice and equity, and rightfully so, the Chairperson of Committees, Honorable Mthembu, in his capacity as the Chairperson of the ANC caucus, went on to say, COVID-19 has laid bare the reality of issues in our political economy system here and abroad. We are deliberately quoting these two leaders of the ANC to demonstrate to the citizens of our country and our province of our resolve and commitment to deal effectively and differently with the mismanagement of funds, misappropriation and malfeasance emanating from the COVID-19 value chain. Honorable Speaker, we have all seen the Auditor General's report, and unfortunately this report lays bare the weaknesses in our system as a result of uncontrolled environment, and therefore we take a view that this legislature should set a precedent by taking oversight to the next level by ensuring that correct and critical questions are asked at all time. This sixth legislature needs to rise to high moral leadership that is defined by honesty and integrity in our oversight. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought a new dimension to us, our families, our surroundings, and even our country. We have traversed such a painful pathway for the first time and have made mistakes here and there, but we have overcome. His Excellency President Ramaphosa, in his address as he called for the national prayer in March, he said, open quote, I quote, the coming weeks will solely test our resolve and patience, I close quote. Indeed, all of us have been tested, and we thank our government for quickly putting a working system to avert what will have wiped up a lot of people from the face of the earth. The efforts of our government were not in vain, as we see the numbers of COVID-19 cases reducing, albeit the mortality is stubbornly increasing. Today, KZN numbers stand at 113,661, with 2,164 deaths, 605 recoveries, 10,892 active cases. Of the total deaths, 1,657, which is 84%, had comorbidities, hypertension at 40%, diabetes mellitus at 38%. eThekwini municipality contributes 48% of the reported deaths, which is 932. We are calling upon the Department of Health to step up its education around these twin diseases. During our oversight visits throughout the province, Honorable Speaker, we learned a lot on the interventions set by the Department of Health to deal with COVID-19. The study took place in all 11 districts of our province. 3 days were allocated for the 2020 Health Functionality Program, and 106 health facilities were sampled and visited to assess COVID-19 management. We are not going to be all over the report. However, the focus will be on the general provincial overview of the COVID-19 and compliance issues. Our Honorable Premier Zikalala launched the massive screening and testing campaign in Pietermaritzburg, and where he made a statement that, open quote, I quote, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy, close quote. We all agree that the provincial government has opted to lean towards the poor, the oppressed, and the without, so as to avert deaths, to flatten the curve and harvest data that were to inform the interventions going forward. Out of the contact tracing, KZN managed to identify 21,131 contacts at our time of visit. The province also managed to monitor more than 90% of the identified contacts. Of the total monitored contacts, 99% had their specimens collected. Positivity rate among contacts was 4.6%. Whereas not everything has been rosy, Honorable Speaker, but our government, under the leadership of President Ramaphosa, has done very well in saving lives and capping the spread of coronavirus. Honorable Speaker, there are areas which we think will better enhance the service delivery of quality health to millions of our people in KZN. That is the signing of the SLA with the private sector, which has demonstrated its commitment to working with the public sector. It is our firm belief that as the ANC endeavors to introduce NHI, this relationship is a bedrock of our success in rolling out this successful political instrument, which a handful of other developed countries are successfully implementing. The other area of importance which was raised during our visits is the importance of ensuring that our districts have the EAPs, employee assistance programs, to support our healthcare workers. Without a comprehensive psychosocial emotional support, our healthcare workers will crack under pressure. And we think the Department of Health must prioritize this unit by filling posts urgently. In our recent Health Portfolio Committee, we noted that 5,885 HCWs were infected with COVID-19. Above 60% of the infected HCWs have recovered, and of the total infected, only a percentage succumbed to the disease. We wish to send our condolences to the families of the demised and also pray for speedy recovery to those who are sick in hospitals and at home. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much. The next speaker for 10 minutes is Honorable N.J. Ngwanyana of the IFP.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Firstly, I would like to commend our healthcare frontline workers who are in the forefront of fighting the invisible enemy of COVID-19 pandemic. We appreciate their dedication and selflessness during this trying time. We also would like to send condolences to the families of those healthcare workers and everyone else who have succumbed to COVID-19 related illnesses. We also want to commend the efforts of the MEC and the whole Department of Health in ensuring that KZN was better prepared to deal with COVID-19. However, there had been shortcomings and challenges facing the healthcare facilities in KwaZulu-Natal, particularly the Ilembe district. During the health monitoring program, there were some health facilities that functioned well, but there were others that were experiencing challenges. Some of the key issues highlighted were limited access to healthcare facilities, lack of adequate personnel and expertise to address the medical needs, poor infrastructure, where most facilities do not have the proper facilities to handle the medical challenges, such as shelters. Ironically, the facilities that are highly equipped with specialized equipment do not have enough equipment and personnel in place to execute the task, access to medical records, and PPE issues. Madam Speaker, the IFP believes that for the healthcare facility to deliver quality healthcare, it should be well equipped with the right equipment, tools, infrastructure, quality medication, should have qualified and experienced staff. These setbacks deserve to be urgently addressed in order to improve the delivery quality of healthcare services during this pandemic. Infrastructure. Poor infrastructure impedes access to health. Most clinics that were visited, such as Shaka's Crowd Clinic, Esidumbini Clinic, Isitebe Clinic, and Montebello Hospital, patients' waiting areas did not have shelters. Besides a lack of shelters in the waiting areas, we noted that most health care facilities have no capacity to deal with COVID-19 challenges. Shaka's Crowd Clinic is currently housed at a library, and the space is limited, which inconveniences and disadvantages local people. We believe that this matter must be addressed urgently. It is prudent to anticipate that these needs are only going to still exist post-COVID-19. With the spotlight currently on KZN, indigenous innovative fight against the COVID-19 virus, the time has come to boost KZN healthcare infrastructure and push for greater technology deepening in the healthcare sector to build a robust health system for the future. Focusing on KZN infrastructure and technology needs would require emphasizing the triple helix model innovation that is bringing together the government, academia, and industry now more than ever. We are concerned, Madam Speaker, about insufficient ambulances in Tunjambili Hospital, which is serviced by one ambulance, and there is poor network coverage, which results to hospital officials traveling to Pietermaritzburg for data capturing. The issue of insufficient accommodation in Mpumulo Hospital has a negative effect on the functioning of the hospital in attracting more medical staff. These issues must be addressed by building enough accommodation for medical staff. The IP comments that the Department of Health uses the infrastructure grant allocated to fix problems identified in the facilities. Every health facility and district would have to provide the Department of Health with a plan of every facility where challenges had been identified and indicate how these would be addressed. COVID-19 rules. It is concerning that there are some people who continue to disregard the rule of social distancing and wearing a mask, as this was evident during the health monitoring program, where many clinics reported that patients come to clinics and hospitals without wearing masks and not adhere to social distancing. The IFP suggests that the law must take its course on those who are refusing to wear masks. Such people must not be treated with soft gloves. They must know that the government is serious in preventing the spread of COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic is far from over, and people need to observe the regulations that are meant to protect them. More awarenesses must be conducted on a daily basis to educate people about the importance of wearing a mask every time. Wearing a mask is non-negotiable and must be enforced. Staff shortages. The issue of staff shortages is of grave concern to the IFP. This was evident in health facilities such as Daniel Clinic, Tunjambili Hospital, and Umpumulo Hospital. The shortage of staff seems to present great challenge for the health sector in KZN. For years, KZN has been faced with acute shortage of medical professionals with respect to catering to an immense, unmanageable population during a pandemic. We'd like this department to expedite the recruitment process so that this problem can be resolved in order to address the core concerns across the province, as lack of adequate staff remains the challenge in dealing with COVID-19. Most medical personnel shun public hospitals in favor of privately run facilities, which is claimed to provide better services and pay better salaries to medical workers. There's an urgent need to address this human resource and staffing issue through a proper policy in place that will boost the public health sector. However, lack of serious interest and initiatives, direction, objectives, and strong political will continue to deteriorate further the existing KZN health system. Unless serious attention is paid to revamping and correcting the system, it could continue its downslide into major collapse and catastrophe. Accessible and affordable healthcare for all is the crying need of the time, particularly for the KwaZulu-Natal's poor. The much awaited National Health Insurance Program should be carefully rolled out, ensuring that the smallest member of the target population is enrolled and understands what exactly the scheme means to her. As we get ready for the face of future, which is full of possibility and uncertainty in equal measure, let us recognize these and other challenges and prepare to meet them, remembering that the fight against ill health is the fight against that all is harmful to humanity. But without addressing healthcare challenges, it is impossible for the NHI to succeed. It is the duty of the Department of Health to amicably address all the challenges in healthcare facilities. Angithokoze Dadewethu Somlomo.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next member for 5 minutes is Honorable Dr. R. Virana of the DA. Dr. Virana.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Here.
These health institution functionality visits were done during the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. This was a pandemic whose rapidity of onset was unseen in a century, and we must consider that KwaZulu-Natal's public health system was already in a functionality crisis prior to the pandemic. However, COVID-19, despite an unprecedented crisis, gave us the opportunity to undertake the necessary administrative reforms, infrastructure maintenance, and staff recruitment necessary to ensure that all KZN residents, regardless of economic status, has access to quality healthcare. Now that the prevailing scientific evidence is that KZN is past its surge, we can use this opportunity to assess hold the executive accountable, and offer proper solutions. Firstly, Speaker, we must commend and applaud our frontline health workers. They are our heroes through this COVID-19 pandemic. Many continued their duties despite the fear of getting infected or taking the virus home to their families. Despite precautions, though, almost 6,000 healthcare workers were infected, just over 4,300 in the public sector alone. And sadly, 57 healthcare workers in KZN passed away, and we send our deepest condolences to their friends and colleagues. They were mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, breadwinners, and will be missed. Many others continue to work under extremely trying circumstances, but without them, our health system would have collapsed. As the DA, we stand with the health workers at Addington Hospital, Mahatma Gandhi, Ngwelezana, and many other facilities. While some facilities were able to manage this pandemic and offer quality care, there were others, like Mahatma Gandhi, where patients and workers were overwhelmed, where there were numerous reports of the mixing of COVID and non-COVID patients due to the lack of space. Added to this were the reports from Addington hospitals where wards were only half-staffed with nurses due to chronic understaffing, and nurses and porters being continuously sworn at and abused while struggling with patients to access the 1 or 2 functional lifts in the main tower block. The other lifts have been broken for years on end. The DA, we stand with the health workers at Ngwelezane Hospital who are overworked due to their chronic staff shortages, where nurses had to mop the floors due to the lack of cleaners, while others had to deal with the new Chinese-made KN95 masks of questionable quality and SABS certification. Our doctors, our nurses, and our other healthcare workers are the primary reason for KwaZulu-Natal's high recovery rate. They have achieved this great feat primarily despite MEC Simelane Zulu and this government, but not because of them. That is sadly why today the main reason we see the lack of healthcare worker celebrations across the KZN, as we have seen in other provinces. Instead, we see a strike. Our healthcare workers deserve better. Even before the pandemic, KwaZulu-Natal hospitals were faced with severe staff shortages, especially of cleaners, nurses, and doctors. These are now exacerbated as healthcare workers have to go on quarantine for COVID-19. We welcome the 6-month employment of nurses, admin clerks, and general auditors. It has provided some temporary relief, but was still not sufficient. At many facilities, we have received reports that in many wards, including COVID-19 wards, are only half-staffed according to the nursing staffing norm. And additionally, there are still no details as to what will happen when these 6-month contracts end. We need a permanent plan to deal with staff recruitment, and a finalization of the minimum staff establishment has to occur sooner rather than later. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next member for 4 minutes is Honorable J.N. Cele of the ANC. Honorable Cele.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I greet you all in the name of the African National Congress. Honorable Speaker, I have minimal speaking time, so without any further ado, allow me not to do any preambles, but will just go straight to the focus on my debate. As part of our oversight role as members of this House, we went to all corners of the province to assess on how health institutions are coping and how they are handling COVID-19 and to check the conditions of the infrastructure. Amongst other issues, hence I will confine my debate on the condition of health facilities and infrastructure. Honorable members, it is quite important to remind this August House that the ANC 54th National Conference noted that health is a priority for the ANC government and the country. Then resolved that the ANC must adopt and employ the method of accelerated infrastructure planning. The delivery of maintenance and revitalization that is similar to ASIC, which is an accelerated school infrastructure delivery initiative used by the basic education sector. On the 24th to 26th of June 2020, we embarked on the Health Institution Monitoring and Functionality Program of the Legislature. My team visited hospital under the King Cetshwayo district, namely Catherine Booth Hospital, Eshowe Hospital, CHC at Eskaweni, Tambanani Clinic, Ekombe Hospital, just to mention a few. Honorable Speaker, the Department of Health needs to be uploaded for commitment and improving our health system. Hence, it will be crucial that we appreciate your hardworking MEC Honorable Noma Simelane, and we will like to encourage you and your team to continue doing your best in the difficult condition of the pandemic and beyond.
Honorable Cele, I am informed by IT that your video is not on. I first checked with IT. Please switch on your video, Honorable Member.
I did, Speaker. It's... Oh.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Speaker.
You can continue.
Okay. Under difficulty of the pandemic and beyond. While we appreciate the achievement experienced, it is also worth noting that this department still has difficult and critical tasks ahead, as a lot still needs to be done. An example of the work to be conducted, amongst others, is the revitalization of the CHCs and clinics we visited. We are saying that the department must put aside funds for maintenance and repairs of these facilities. Honorable Speaker, what is also a concern is that the Department of Health needs to look closely at the state of the roads leading to these facilities, as they are not in a good state, where accessibility of these facilities as they becomes a challenge. Hence, we are calling the Department of Health and Transport to work together and not work in silos, which will yield positive results for the people of KwaZulu-Natal. Honorable Speaker, my concern is especially at Ekombe Hospital, Catherine Booth, and Tambanani Clinic, and in many other facilities in our province. This is also ensure a continuation of a better life for all. As I conclude, Honorable Speaker, I would like to appreciate the Legislature for committing itself in the program for exercising its oversight role to the executive as per its constitutional mandate, and would like to call upon all members, citizens, to support the Department of Health as a frontline department during these times of hardship, and ensure that we all adhere to the regulations and support our government by all means in flattening the curve. I thank you, Speaker.
Yeah. Thank you, Honorable Member. The next member is Honorable LG Seja for 6 minutes. Honorable LG Seja for 6 minutes.
Speaker, greetings to all members and our supporting staff. The degradation that has become public health care and health facilities available to people of South Africa speaks to the appalling level of respect and care the ANC has for its citizens, particularly in poorly serviced KZN and its crumbling healthcare system that proved to already be undertrained strained because of communicable diseases, corruption, and maladministration. The lives lost during this pandemic exposed a lack of capacity, infrastructure, and clinical readiness of KZN health services to respond to the medical need of society. Most concerningly, the Chairperson report fails to even honestly communicate the shameful and unacceptable conditions workers and the sick were subjected to in the last few months. Blocked by corruption and of the highest order of health officials, hospitals suffered from lack of PPE, heightened volume of patients, and cruel work demands on workers who are at the forefront of those who lost their lives due to COVID-19. As we assess the functionality monitoring program, we have most unconvinced by this report. There was no community screening in some areas. It was in April where angry residents bent tires outside Untonjambili Hospital near Waduza in KwaZulu-Natal over the admission of 10 people with COVID-19 at the hospital. Similar flare-ups were also recorded in Pinetown and Chatsworth and surrounding communities. Any indicative sign that programs by the department to educate the public about the virus, its management and its focus to curb the spread were not just poor and wanting, but deplorable. It is unclear why the chairperson's report chose to misinform the House of the State of frontline workers and the human resource that has not only been aggrieved by bad practice by KZN Health, but that has been put at high negligence. Understaffed hospitals, trained frontline workers, and PPE corruption and shortages sponsored by the ANC further endangered health workers who laid their lives to help the nation and the province fight this pandemic. This report is an insult to healthcare workers who succumbed to the virus because they were forced to work without PPEs, regardless of having existing illness and colleagues contracting the virus. Hospitals like Albert Lotuli, Eddington, Kingsway in Amanzimtoti, Parkland in Durban, Shifa in Durban, Isbekiskas in Port Elizabeth, and Eden Hospital in Pietermaritzburg centrally are proof of this, with workers contracting the virus and dying, and the remaining workers going on strike to demand rotation tests for COVID-19 and PPEs. It concerns the EFF that there are claims that in healthcare facilities visited, human resources in all levels and categories were adequately trained and capacitated for testing and treating the virus, particularly when most of the cries from workers to their unions was about the lack of readiness and training for handling the virus and a lack of testing. Oversight must, to our satisfaction, indicate where this imaginary readiness existed. The Economic Freedom Fighter reiterates that public health care in South Africa is in crisis. The political changeover in 1994 did not bring true liberation. It was a bluff which continues to subject Black people to economic and social apartheid. The pandemic further exposed, to no exception, the lack of capital resources and machinery necessary to run hospitals. Basic oxygen points, equipment, and ventilators had to be procured in a procurement process that in itself must still be heavily scrutinized. These structural gaps desperately speak to how humiliatingly unacceptable KZN healthcare system presently are to those that desperately need them. There are high levels of corruption in the health department. Public health institutions have no basic facilities and buildings are collapsing. Machines are broken. There is a shortage of doctors and nurses and community healthcare workers. In fact, at the beginning of 2018, the EFF has challenged the lack of adequate health services in the country. We wrote and submitted memorandum, but still the maladministration and mismanagement of funds is deplorable. There is no infrastructure, there is no improvement. Ultimately, this translates to the fact that there is no dignity in the treatment of our people received in KZN. The country's public health system has often been subjected to criticism for poor service, poor hygiene, insufficient staff, rampant negligence, but COVID-19 revealed that the biggest cancer in the KZN health is the ANC, which is the ruling party and its deployees. The ultimate response of the EFF with regards to the oversight response is that we are not naive nor blind to the lies and hypocrisy of this report. The people of KZN and this committee must never allow themselves to be misled and lied to by the ruling government and its deployees. We challenge this oversight report to scrutiny and the financial audit of KZN Health and its financial approach. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
The next member for 2 minutes is for the NFP, Honorable V.R. Mlotshwa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, honorable members. Okokuqala nje masiqale ngokubonga bonke abasebenzi abasekhaleni lalolu bhubhane esibhekene nalo emnyangweni wezempilo. We acknowledge and support the implementation strategy, objectives and goals to better the healthcare facilities in the province. And as well as fight the spreading of COVID-19. Introducing e-health system was a well thought of and calculated decision as we move with fourth industrial revolution in this current world. While this project is being piloted at Prince Mshien Memorial and at Mataten hospitals, can we ensure that the recent cases involving embezzlement doesn't compromise the success of the projects? Can we introduce the project more widely? COVID-19 screening and testing was a success in KZN alone, which facilitated a faster response in fighting the pandemic. Madam Speaker, as the NFP acknowledge the fact that the state is best positioned to provide universal health care, and the COVID-19 pandemic has shown a private health care is not fit to withstand a pandemic of this scale. We urge the department to accelerate the implementation of the National Health Care Insurance. Madam Speaker, we are troubled by a recent case concerning Northdale Hospital, whereby management did not provide necessary facilities for patients. We support the immediate suspension.
Thank you, Honorable Mlotshwa. Thank you, Honorable Mlotshwa. Your time has expired. The next speaker for 5 minutes is Honorable NPF Mavuso of the ANC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, Honorable members. The African National Congress salutes all the healthcare workers that are employed under the Health Professions Act, Basic Conditions of Employment Act, Labour Relations Act, and other relevant prescripts who, despite all the challenges, anxiety, pressure, fatigue, and burnout, continue to lead from the front. The ANC is grateful for the decisive leadership of the National Ministry of Health and the KwaZulu-Natal Health Team in particular, led by the Honorable MEC of Health, in prioritizing and repurposing the filling of critical posts in the health facilities in the fight against coronavirus, and the massive support that is given by the department to the employees. Our heartfelt condolences, Honorable Speaker, go to the families of the workers that passed on both in the private and the public sectors. May their souls rest in peace. Honorable Speaker, it is very important to have an effective healthcare system that responds to the needs of the population. The supply and the relevant skills make it very easy to respond to the emergencies and the disasters. Department of Health employed mechanisms to deal with the pandemic, including contracting human resources for the period of 6 months and promoting 3,450 qualified staff nurses to professional nurses across all the districts. A total of 119 professional nurses posts have been filled in the districts like Umgungundlovu, King Cetshwayo, Ugu, Ilembe, and Amajuba, with eThekwini having 13 additional of 200 professional nurses available. In King Cetshwayo, 107 staff nurses were translated to professional nurses and 107 nursing assistants to enrolled nurses. The concern in the districts is that of the general orderlies and administration in line with the moratorium. Some facilities have reduced number of general orderlies due to age and comorbidities. It is therefore important, Honourable Speaker, for the department to relook at the issue of the general orderlies in line with the moratorium. The ANC notes and appreciates that the province benefited from the pool of Cuban medical experts to fight against COVID-19 in the form of family physicians, epidemiologists, and statisticians. The rate of infections of the healthcare workers increased, leading to most of them to be quarantined, resulting in additional staff shortages and a strain and pressure on the healthcare workers due to the increased workload. This also leads to increased number of litigations. It is therefore the ANC recommending that the department has a clear plan on the staff relief so that the replacements are fast-checked at the hospitals and the clinics. The ANC further recommends that strategies like recruitment, repurposing within limits and skills are applied, that mental and psychosocial support are provided. The ANC further recommends, Honourable Speaker, that the department ensures provision of psychological assistance in the districts. It's pleasing to note that the curve is indeed flattening and functionality is getting restored in the health facilities. Honourable Speaker, the ANC recommends that relations between the department, organised labour and hospital boards be strengthened in hospitals and the clinics. The collaborative work and the collective leadership shown during the health functionality visit by the above-mentioned stakeholders was commended, as the organised labour was part of all the visits. It is quite pleasing to note that the department is extending training not only to the health workers, but to other stakeholders as well, like the funeral parlours that receive bodies that are not screened and tested from the communities. The training involves the swapping of the bodies so as to ensure the decrease of infections and community awareness on the effects of coronavirus. Honourable Speaker, allow me to respond to Honourable Seja, who says that they are disputing the health visit functionality report. You can't dispute a report that is supported by all the parties. Honourable Seja must remember, Honourable Speaker, that that was a multi-party functionality to the health institutions. And all the parties are adopting such reports and they come up with the recommendations, which is something that we are waiting from him to say these are the recommendations to the department. We applaud the massive work.
Honourable Member, thank you.
I thank you.
The next speaker for 2 minutes is Honourable Esther Banzi of the MF.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The MF supports the health visits report with recommendations. Honourable members, health facilities visits are important for oversight, but unlike the Speaker's initiatives, which looks at key areas, portfolio committees require structured visits in terms of standard operating procedures and norms and standards, especially when responding to the COVID-19 crisis at the same time. Furthermore, these visits did not cover the hotels and lodges which the Department of Health had contracted for 6 months at a cost which we could have, saved on and helped our other institutions if we planned better and if our contracts were only for 3 months. So did we get value for money? whilst we were also given free beds from the private sector, example Ascot Park Hospital, and these were not utilized, while we had patients who had no beds in our institutions, like Welazan Hospital. Similarly, some of the institutions were even burned partly, like in Ishawe, the Catherine Booth Hospital, where residents didn't even want a dedicated COVID-19 hospital. So, Honourable Speaker, notwithstanding that our chairperson is very dedicated, the Honourable Majola, we should have ideally embarked on the hospital visits to the same hospitals we visited before, but at a later date when Public Works had completed the essential COVID-19 related renovations. And I call on the Programming Committee in future to consider these. Honourable Speaker, the Minority Front looks forward to a comprehensive Speaker's Health Oversight visit that focuses on SOPs and norms and standards, which requires strengthening. If we are to make meaningful changes to the way in which our health institutions adapt to COVID-19 challenges and beyond, with flexibility, timeliness, cost containment, and minimal loss of lives, especially as we are expecting a second wave of COVID-19, yet we have been pushed to drop to level 2. So from an economic point of view, therefore, we have to adapt to the new normal of balancing livelihoods and lives simultaneously. Thank you. The MF accepts this report.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker for 2 minutes is Honourable M.E. Pakati of the ATM. He is not in the House, therefore we'll go to the next member for 5 minutes, Honourable E.V. Dube of the ANC.
Well, thank you very much, Speaker, for affording me this opportunity to be part of this very interesting debate. One thing, Honourable Speaker, the absence of EFF in these visits is very loud and very clear. Hence, we can hear from the talk of Honourable Seja, engayindawo ayakhe inkulumo yakhe futhi ayicontribute lutho ngokuthi kufanele senze njani ebhedlela zaKwaZulu-Natal ukuthi sakhe ikusasa enesisekelo sabantu bethu. Kuzwakala enkulumeni yakhe ezulazulayo engenasisekelo ukuthi ngiyadoubt ukuthi kukhona isibhedlela aya kuso. Uma aya esibhedlela kusho ukuthi kungenza ukuthi akazi ukuthi sasiyokwenzana ebhedlela. Mhlambe kusadinga ukuthi lencazelo sinike ngokuphelele Honourable Speaker uma siphuma sivakashela indawo ukuthi kahle kahle sisuke sokwenzana. It is important to remind him about the words that were said by our former President Nelson Mandela. One of the most important things is not to change the society, but to change yourself. It is a time that as EFF, they must consider ukuthi uma bengaguqula ukucabanga kwabo bazibone njengabantu okufanele babe ne-contribution positive abayenzayo kwi-province yethu. Ngempela ukuphela kwabo kuzoshabalala ngamasisha kunokufika kwabo. I would like to record also my gratitude to my organization, ANC, for affording me this opportunity, that we are given opportunity to monitor and support the health facilities. Speaker, I must say that our monitoring program is highly appreciated by the frontline workers, and as it gives them hope that our presence is showing that they have support of the Speaker and the Legislature. As much as most of them, when we come there, they have fear because they do not know what we have come to do. But every time, Speaker, we present to them what we are there for, they become very excited just to know that they have our full support. Speaker, COVID-19 happened, and thank you for sending us there to be there in the time of need. In the beginning, Speaker, the PPEs were an outcry, as this was not expected and it happened overnight. But we are very grateful that the Department of Health has been on top in making sure that the PPEs are supplied as much as they are needed, and the cry of PPEs has subsided, if it has not disappeared, because in most places, sibonile ukuthi ama PPEs akhona futhi anele ngempela ukuthi azosebenza kuze kube yilesikhathi la engezodinga kakhulu khona. While ama-PPEs, we must emphasize, Honorable Speaker, ukuthi abevele sebenze ebhedlela, but COVID-19 ifike nale challenge ukuthi there must be extra PPEs that are provided. And indeed, I think in KwaZulu-Natal, we must applaud the Department of Education ukuthi they were very quick and they were very efficient in making sure that the PPEs are supplied as much as they were needed. One of the things that we noticed, Honourable Speaker, in places that we visited, it was encouraging to see the interest of Amakosi and Izinduna in our visits, especially in Herigwala, where we were deployed. The clinic committees were there to give us support, as much as most of them were really applauding the work that is done by the clinics that are built in their localities. Although there's a challenge, Somlomo, I must say, ngemgaqo eya kwamanye alama clinic ukuthi ithatha ingabi mihle kakhulu, kodwa nevertheless kuya encourage ukubona ukuthi abantu bayawasebenzisa, futhi induna namakhosi ziyancoma kakhulu ukuthi afike ngesikhathi esifanele, akhiwe ezindaweni ezifanele. One must say that COVID-19 was as bad as it is. It came with a lot of positive, Honourable Speaker, because it made us to understand and to know ukuthi Department of Education is, Department of Health is very efficient ekwenzeni umsebenzi wayo nokubhekelela impilo zabantu, okubonisa ukuthi ngempela abantu basezandleni eziphephile ezandleni eziphephile enhlanganweni ebusayo e-African National Congress. Kusinikeze i-confidence ukubona ukuthi emphakathini esihamba kuyo abantu basayethemba kakhulu i-ANC njengohulumeni ophethe ukuthi izokwazi ukunakekela izimpilo zabo. It is very encouraging, I must say also, Speaker, ukuthi emphakathini esihamba kuyo abantu abaningi bayabonisa ukuthi lento yama-mask baye-understanda, noma besadingake kakhulu ukukhuthazwa endaweni engasemakhaya, kodwa bayabonisa ukuthi.
Honorable member, thank you. Your time has expired.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu Somlomo.
Yeah.
Honorable members. Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members.
Upolonek.
Honorable Dube, I thought you were not going to respond to that because I was going to attend it at the end of the sitting. The sittings of the legislature remain official and formal sittings. The attire is as per the rules. I request that we abide with the rules in terms of how we dress. The dress code has not changed. There is no one for the virtual sitting yet. Honorable member who is next for 2 minutes is Honorable S.E. Manwele of the ACDP. He is not in the house. The next member for 3 minutes is Honorable R. Virana of the DA.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The main problem continues to be the recruitment of doctors in the health department. The JMH group donated 50 hospital beds at their Ascot Park facility attached onto Addington Hospital. However, these vital beds were not used because Addington did not have sufficient staff to man this facility. Thus, even though Addington and other Durban facilities were overwhelmed, some having more than 160 cases at one stage, they could not transfer patients to private facilities. Additionally, while there were funds, equipment, and space for an ICU at Addington, this could not be established due to lack of doctors. At the beginning of the pandemic, MEC Simelane Zulu called for volunteer doctors to assist. MEC, I took up your call and I followed the number that you allocated for volunteers to contact. And despite that initial proof of acknowledgement, there has been silence. So how many other doctors in private or other fields were left unused while there was this desperate need for help in our public facilities? Our meetings with the Netcare group as a health committee has indicated that no SLAs have been signed between the KZN Department of Health and the private sector in this province, despite the national pricing already agreed to at the National Health Department level. But ultimately, all this is due to a lack of executive accountability. While the MEC continues to blame officials for facilities failures, as we saw in the inhumane death at Northdale Hospital, she must realize that she takes full responsibility, not officials. We see this again in COVID-19 communication. Both the World Health Organization and the Medical Advisory Committee emphasize that the more information is shared with the public, the more likely they are to assess their personal risk and adhere to physical distancing precautions. Yet in KZN, the MEC has continued to refuse to release daily health sub-district and hotspot information, as is the standard operating procedure and norm in other provinces. Instead of assisting and fighting this pandemic, this refusal may have contributed to increased infections. At least this abuse of executive power is currently under investigation by the public protector, and we await this outcome. Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable Verana, thank you, Honorable Dr. Verana. The next speaker for 7 minutes is Honorable N.M. Sibiya of the ANC. Honorable Sibiya of the ANC for 7 minutes.
Asidlule somlomo akekho.
Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Sibiya has been having challenges of network since we started the sitting, and we have made that indication. He was online a second ago, but he has requested that in an event he gets cut, he delegates that we read his speech.
Aye.
If then that is the case, we have been, when we were dealing with the budget sittings, we have invoked and made that ruling. It was ruling number 3.4, and it was also in terms of rule 73, acting for absent member, subject to sub-rule 2, a member may take charge of a motion or an order of the day in the absence of the member in charge, provided that he or she has been authorized to do so by the absent member. We have invoked that during the start of the virtual rulings, the virtual sittings. And we framed a ruling on the 2nd of June. We are going to allow the member that has been mandated by Honorable Sibiya to continue. Deputy Chief Whip, if there is such a member.
Yes, Speaker, he has indicated that one must then take over in an event he gets cut. Honorable Speaker, let's appreciate and applaud the dedication of our frontline compatriots who risked it all to ensure that they save lives while risking their own. We say to them, Honorable Speaker, indeed, as a country, we are indebted to them. We know, Honorable Speaker, that all members are speaking in one voice in this debate, obviously with the exception of one, and for obvious reasons that they were not part of the oversight. We acknowledge the challenges that exist within the health sector, but we must applaud the department in the manner in which they raised and ensured that lives of our people were saved. We know the historical challenges of infrastructure in our various institutions, which resulted in the department to having to dig deep in their coffers to ensure that they build facilities in time to prevent the scourge of COVID-19. And to the department, we say, we really appreciate. Honorable Speaker, yes, there are challenges, but be that as it may, we must not pretend as though it is worse as what some members claim to be. We can never, Honorable Speaker, accept the slow response from our EMRS, but we must, however, report that when we conducted oversight, we received positive news in regarding the dispersing of ambulances in our various facilities. Honorable Speaker, we were told that the turnaround time has greatly improved, but obviously we are making a request that this must not only be a COVID-19 related matter, it must be an improvement that continues beyond COVID-19. We must equally on this matter applaud the department for ensuring that in the previous financial year, they procure 150 ambulances, as well as in this current financial year, 130 ambulances, which are as a result of the quick pace that we are now seeing in our various facilities. Honorable Speaker, we must equally acknowledge the manner in which the department has handled the incidences that have made public headlines. And further, we want to assure the public that we will ensure that everyone that needs to account for whatever negligence in our various departments is held to account. We have seen the MEC of Health being on the front line in ensuring that every matter that rises or is made public, she responds to it and responds accordingly. We understand, Honorable Speaker, the anxiety that comes with this pandemic, but we will never accept the banning of infrastructure like we have seen in some parts of our areas. We must equally mention, Honorable Speaker, ukuthi ingqalasizinda kahulumeni must be protected and it must be respected. We cannot at any given moment turn a blind eye when infrastructure that is meant to serve the public is vandalized or is burnt to ashes. We understand that COVID-19 has came with abnormalities, but we are calling for calm in our various communities to say, let government do its work, let government ensure that it protects the lives of the general masses of our people. But equally, Honorable Speaker, we have seen the department ensuring that where there are shortages, they ensure that they mitigate by ensuring that staff siyatholakala ezindaweni ekumele uqashwe khona, though it has not been satisfactory. However, we must indicate that this does not go unnoticed. We are therefore, Honorable Speaker, saying we understand that COVID-19 has come with great responsibilities, but equally, we are calling for calm in all our communities, and we applaud our health sector frontline compatriots, and we say to them, we really do appreciate. We are equally saying to the department, in relation to the procurement of COVID-19, we will be closely monitoring how it unfolds, and we will ensure that we play our part in terms of oversight to ensure that we hold everyone that needs to account as we continue to work. We thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip. The next member is now the response by the Chairperson of the Health Portfolio Committee to the debate, Honorable N.R. Majola, for 10 minutes. Honorable Slalo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wish, as this House, we could all understand that.
Honorable Majola, Honorable Chairperson, may we first switch on the video, and this time we must not switch it off.
I never switched it off, Speaker. I don't know what happened to it. But
Thank
now,
you.
Okay, thank you. I will keep on checking on it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wish this House would understand that no one has invited this pandemic. And then when it comes, everybody should have at the back of his or her mind that whatever difficulties that we are dealing with within the public health sector, it's not something of this current government doing. Apartheid left a terrible special legacy. Housing policy since 1994, in some instances, it have reinforced the spatial divide by placing low-income housing in the periphery of the cities far from economic activity. Speaker, reversing the country's special inheritance, even with sound, sensible policies, is likely to take decades. Sisalungisa ke umonakalo wababusi nabaphathi bangaphambili benkohlakalo. Kuzoba kuhle into ukuthi umuntu xa eshukuma ezothetha on what she has observed from our institutions during these visits, akhumbule into ukuthi silungisa umonakalo woyise noyisomkhulu abawushiyayo kuthi kudala. Ndisatshilo ke Speaker, ndizobulela kakhulu kubantu abaphumileyo, Honorable Hlongwa, Honorable Cele, Honorable Dube, Honorable Tsalutha, Honorable Mavuso, nabe Honorable Nkwanyana, ngokuthi nibe objective in your observations, and as well as also in your deliberations when it comes to what you have identified in our visits. I want to put points of emphasis, because when we are dealing with this issue, we are dealing with something that is very, very much critical and needs to be, the departments needs to be applauded in everything that they have done, because all this happened within a short space of time. But be it like that, the department has managed to come up with all the strategies to mitigate the situation that they were faced with. I will start with the issue of the department on seeing the issue. We are all aware that the Department of Health had a priority in the line of the infrastructure in their APP. But because of this pandemic that just set in March, it could not allow them an opportunity to ensure that the infrastructural plan is being implemented. But despite that, we have seen the department coming up with innovative and mitigating factors, like coming up with the field hospitals. We have been to this Nkosi Gezenga Hospital. You can see that institution that has been built within the floor space of the hospital, it's something that will stay there, assisting and talking to the regulations. Because when we are talking of this COVID-19, we are talking of something that is talking to the regulations. It needs some, if you are having a ward that was composed of 34 patients, when you are now trying to come in and dealing with the issue of the social distance, you have to divide that ward into two. So coming up with the field hospitals that are there and functional with the equipment that has been procured in order to mitigate the situation, we have to applaud the government of ANC. We have to applaud the department for being so proactive in doing all those things. We do understand that this issue of the human resource shortage, it's something that came in also when we were in the process. The Department of Treasury, the Department of the Premier, as well as the Department of Health, they were in the process of dealing with a project that we are calling it as a minimum staff establishment. Yes, the reason why the department came up with that, or the government came up with the minimum staff establishment proposal, it's because you cannot take health as any government, as any department, like agriculture. It's a department that has got a reason for each and every category. If you are talking of the enrolled nursing assistant, there are specific roles to be performed by those people. When we are talking of the enrolled nurses, they have got their own specific protocols to follow, as well as you go up the hierarchy. Then when you are coming with the division of each ward, a ward that was having 32, and now you are going to have 2 wards out of it, you have to look at it. How am I going to staff such wards? And don't forget that the very pandemic is also depleting the very staff that we are having, because we are all aware that they have been faced with this pandemic. They have been quarantined now and again. Some of them, they were infected. Some of them eventually even succumbed to the death. So it's so difficult to see people who are acting as if all this is like uplanela umchado. We never planned for a wedding. When this was pronounced, we had to go out as this committee to make sure that the institutions that were identified as the institutions that are going to manage the COVID-19 are up to date. Yes, we were going together as a team. Really, when we were talking of Honorable Secha, I wouldn't say it's somebody who has been to any of the institutions. Then what we have to take out of this pandemic, we must take the positive thing out of it, because it has made us as the public sector to come together with the private sector, which is our way towards the national health insurance. If we can miss this opportunity of making sure that we are signing that service level agreement, we will not be doing justice towards the implementation of the national health insurance. We further go to the issue of how the department came up with the 6-month contract. All those were the mitigating as well as the intervention strategy to ensure that no one would die unattendedly. If any incident of that nature has happened, we know that it was beyond a healthcare worker's control. So we have to applaud the department with everything that they have tried to do. When we are looking at the department, at the search of the KZN as far as this pandemic is concerned, we could see that as much as it is said that we are now in level 2 and it is lowering down, when we are looking at it, we might have the infections, but the fact remains, when we are looking at the recoveries, you can see that there is a good work that is being done. A recovery of 1 person in ICU. When you are a nurse in that ward, you always say, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for taking this person back to life. So you are looking at a situation when now you are going to have people who are talking about Eddington. When you are talking of the issue of Eddington, if you are looking at the age of Eddington, I made it openly in our meetings that we must take a position about Eddington. You cannot put a new window in an old hospital and you think that it's going to be functioning as normal. It's just like as normal, as old as I am. You come up, you say, I must come and put up the makeup and all those things. It's not going to be like that. We have to take the responsibility that the lifts, Honorable Virana, that are put in Eddington, they are the lifts that were put by your and your forefathers. Currently, you want that hospital to operate as if it's like a newly built institution. Of course, yes, as the government of ANC, our vision 2020 under the NDP, it's making it clear about the observations and the gaps that they have identified. Our leaders have identified in those commissions. As far as the public health is concerned, we cannot sleep and then wake up tomorrow having all those gaps being managed. As I have said in my opening, yes, it will take us some time to make sure that really, indeed, and in our public health sector, we are doing well. But I would pledge that let us make sure that the issue of bringing the private sector together with the public health sector, we should make it as something that is happening in order to make sure that those highly equipped hospitals, as well as the highly resourced hospitals in the line of the private sector, they are of assistance, because they will never have patients when we are talking of this pandemic if we are not coming together. And the issue of the national health insurance is assisting us. It will take us further to ensure that we have got one procurer of the service. but with a huge base of people who are benefiting out of it, irrespective of uzalwa ngumamiya, uzalwa nguMagadebe. Kwayena umamiya lo noMagadebe will be in a position to benefit something that has never ever thought of ngoba angazi azibone benefit. It is our responsibility based in our manifesto, based in our NDP as the leading government, that we are here to transform each and every sector that has been.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Honorable
yeah. Thank you, love.
Now, honorable members, we are moving to the next
order,
which is the matter of public importance on the allegations of corruptions, particularly about the COVID-19 expenditure as moved by Honorable F.A. Rogers. I call upon the mover of the matter of public importance, Honorable Rogers, for 10 minutes.
Yabulela Somlom, Mama. Madam Speaker, at the outset, let me take this opportunity to thank you and the Whippery for agreeing to this important debate. It will no doubt be an uncomfortable discussion with accusations and counter-accusations. It's nevertheless a discussion that needs to be held. In order for this debate to produce some sort of positive results moving forward, it'll require honesty and acceptance of the scourge of corruption that faces the province and our country. This much we owe to the people of KwaZulu-Natal. I would hope, Madam Speaker, that the common denominator to this debate, no matter what your political philosophy or party, would be for the sole purpose of building a capable and ethical state that ultimately is focused on addressing the socio-economic inequalities and delivering effective and affordable service delivery, and ultimately to build a sustainable economy. If this is indeed not your sole purpose, then you're part of the problem. It is apt to note, Madam Speaker, that the word corruption has its origins from a Latin word meaning rotten, and rotten is defined in the dictionary as decayed or decomposed state, spoiled, tainted, having a bad odor because of decomposition or decay, putrid, foul-smelling, morally corrupt, or offensive, dishonest, open to bribery. Thus, we have putrid and decaying people walking amongst us. It is beyond me why we would want to protect any putrid and decaying human being in this state. The question, Madam Speaker, is somebody appointed these people. Somebody appointed a supply chain manager to the Department of Arts and Culture with nothing more than a matric certificate. Why? Patronage? Poor cadre deployment? You see, Madam Speaker, this is part of the problem, is poor cadre deployment. Cadre deployment with ulterior motives expands the rot in our state. Was there any consequence to the appointment of this matriculant to head supply chain management? I haven't heard of any consequence. When indeed a poor cadre is exposed, the current solution is quite simply to move that individual to another department or another province, or in some cases, the comrade is promoted to the legislature, even though they're out on bail. Or even worse, as the supply chain management in the Department of Social Development after the blanket scandal resigned. This is indicative of the lack of accountability, which is driven by the lack of political will. Madam Speaker, the three witches in William Shakespeare's Macbeth chanted, "Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble," while they fixed and mixed their cauldron with decaying and putrefied matter. The cauldron could well be used to describe the blatant and disgraceful extent of corruption during this pandemic. Everything in that rotten cauldron is now surfaced during the COVID-19 pandemic and formed a scum of theft and corruption, the stench of which has now found itself in the public and media domain, an embarrassment to each and every one of us. Just as the COVID-19 pandemic appears to be easing its grip on South Africa, yet another ugly pandemic has raised its head, this one of corruption. The people of our province should not be lulled into believing that this is a new phenomenon, cultivated by the health pandemic. Instead, it's a case of COVID-19 having brought to the surface the putrid scourge of what has become an endemic manifestation of corruption under the ANC rule. This rot has been there continuously, but it's been bubbling under the surface. Just yesterday, Kimi Makwetu, the AG, released a statement wherein he referred to COVID relief funding as having, and I quote, landed in a weak control environment, close quote. He continued, and I quote again, "We've been reporting on and warning about a poor financial management control, a disregard for supply chain management legislation, an inability to effectively manage projects, and a lack of accountability," close quote. Post-COVID-19, the writing was indeed on the wall, Madam Speaker. We were warned. Past supply chain corruption in KZN speaks for itself, yet we did nothing to change the system. In real terms, we allowed certain officials to steal from the poor during the pandemic. We are all complicit, Madam Speaker. Only the naive would have believed that this was never going to happen. If we were sincere and wanted to change the system, whatever happened to the e-procurement tool? This was a much mooted system that was hailed by my nemesis, Belinda Scott. The system would have gone a long way to avoid the PPE scandal that's plagued our province. I'm told that the HOD of Treasury, the one that wasn't reappointed, Mr. Magagula, was in fact proceeding with the e-procurement tool when National Treasury had decided we would not implement it. Now we have to ask ourselves the question, if we're not putting systems in place to stop theft and corruption, we are complicit to the theft and corruption in our province. I note that for the first time I can recall that the ANC has on its speakers list today only MECs and the Premier, which is an indication of how seriously the ANC takes this debate and the matter of PPE corruption. 3 departments, of course, have been in the spotlight over the PPE, that is health, education, and social development. The glaring anomaly, Madam Speaker, today is the absence of the MEC of social development on the speaker's list. Her department is at the forefront of the disaster that has faced this province during the COVID-19 pandemic. Why is she not here? She is the executive member of the department. She should be here. She should be talking to the people and explaining herself. Considering the shocking report supplied by this department during last week's SCOPA hearing, leaves me again questioning the sudden approach by the Premier to corruption in our province. This department continues to be riddled with scandal and incompetence. COVID-19 did nothing but highlight the dismal failures of this department, an embarrassment. One would then imagine that this department last week would have its house in order when facing SCOPA on PPE expenditure. Remember, it's public money. One would have imagined that the MEC would have shown political will and pulled her departments and its officials to order for the SCOPA hearing. This was not the case, Madam Speaker. The department and the officials were hopelessly unprepared and could not answer any of the questions sufficiently. Questions such as why was 2.79 million rand spent on face towels? Why was 2.3 million rand spent on, wait for it, disposable toilet wipes? At which location was the almost R500,000 rand spent on food at the SASSA pay points? The answer is Angas. Finally, with the disgusting scandal of the blanket issue, the department was unable to report as to whether all blankets that had been purchased and paid for had in fact been delivered to the department or distributed. The department, in fact, Madam Speaker, was sent packing by Scopa and told to reappear before Scopa in a week's time. Now, is this how we want to deal with the embarrassment that we face? Is this how the ANC wants officials and departments to account for suspected PPE acquisitions?
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker for 10 minutes is for the ANC, Honorable the Premier, Honorable S. Zikalala.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the devastating COVID-19 war is still with us, despite the tremendous progress we've made as a nation under the leadership of His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa. I ask that we continue to adhere to health advice and the state of disaster regulations. May in our prayers continue to support those who are infected and those who are affected. As this House, we have equally lost members of this House due to COVID-19 related diseases. Among them, or solely in this House, we can mention Honorable Arm Timbu, who was buried in KwaZulu-Natal. Number of members of our society have lost their life due to this. May their soul rest in peace. Honorable Speaker, with regard to this debate of today, firstly, it will be important to thank the fact that South Africans, the majority of them, responded positively to the call by the government, firstly, on a lockdown from stage 5 up until now. But secondly, to embrace the protocols that have been put in place. Hence, we have managed to save lives of many South Africans. Hence, in South Africa, the death rate is not at a level that we have seen in other parts, in various parts of the world. We equally thank and salute the healthcare workers who stood and remained steadfast, even when they were tempted and mobilized against providing support, and they continue to work tirelessly. Madam Speaker, in this engagement, of course, as the ANC, we've respected this debate because we want to value any debate irrespective of who proposed it. It will be wrong to believe that the MEC for Social Development have never or is avoiding, or the ANC does not want her to participate in such a debate. She has debated on a number of occasions on these issues. She has addressed herself quite clearly about the issue of corruption in the department and the work that we are doing as government to ensure that we fight corruption. I fully concur with the definition proposed or presented by the leader of the debate, Mr. Honorable Rogers. Corruption is very, very challenging in any capitalist society. Hence, we must erode it and erode the capitalist element and behavior in any of the spheres of our government. Corruption is a cancer that faces government and the private sector equally. And under the ANC-led government, we've committed to fight and defeat this cancer of corruption. When we came to office, we found that there was a report on the forensic around the Premier's office supply chain. We were the first to subject that into legal scrutiny. And once we got that, we suspended the officials who were implicated. And thereafter, those officials have been arrested. I can say that from the office of the Premier, 5 officials have been suspended and cases are ongoing with serious disciplinary measures, including timeframes, because we don't want to have cases that are prolonged for so long while taxpayers pay money. Equally, when the witness, the Natal witness, reported for the first time about the 22 million rand blanket procurement in the Department of Social Development, we were the first to ask for the department to provide the report. In public, only what was reported was 22 million of blanket. But we in government, because we then got more report, when we investigated the procurement of 22 million rand. We equally investigated the procurement of PPEs amounting to 19 million. We never said this is what is in public. We must investigate this and leave this. We investigated everything. It is because of that investigation that 13 officials, including Deputy Director General, the CFO, a number of chief directors have been suspended in the Department of Social Development. Are we saying that we are suspending those people because we want to cover up? No, we want to discipline them. We want to ensure that the truth is revealed and those who committed wrongdoing are held accountable. The report from the Premier's office and the report from the Department of Social Development have again been presented to the SIU for full investigation and prosecution. Now, if you will then say this is because of the deployment or this is because of the ANC, it will be wrong. It will be wrong because we will begin to politicize what is a cancer that we must committed, that we, all of us, must be committed to uproot from all spheres of our government and all levers of the state. Equally, even in the Department of Education, when there were issues, we submitted that report. The government have taken that report for further investigation in the Special Investigation Unit. But more than that, the ANC-led government have put in place a program to ensure that any further procurement is pre-audited even before it is issued. More than that, this government of KwaZulu-Natal have gone public to present the beneficiaries who benefited from the PPEs. But more than that, we would want to see equally that transformation of the economy is taking place, because we're not going to be blackmailed. We must deal with corruption fully while we transform the economy. Corruption is not only in the PPE. Corruption is in various spheres of government, in various programs. Even corruption has no color. And therefore, we must deal with corruption irrespective of who is involved. The ANC government and the ANC as a movement have been clear on this. And that's why we've developed also a process to ensure that there is a database where all those who have been found wanting when it comes to corruption are registered, their name are registered, so that they will not be employed again in the state. So it is very wrong to say that we have not dealt with corruption. The very same supply chain manager in the Department of Arts and Culture who's quoted here have been dealt and is being disciplined by the very same government. It is us. It is not because there is someone who released or who got the information, but it is us who identified that and who are acting on that. We have acted and we will continue to act on any element or report of corruption without fear or favor. Honorable Speaker, besides that, we are going to ensure that we reignite the economy of the province after having been dealt with in a devastating way by COVID-19. That's why we are putting in place a concrete program through the Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Commission that will see us realizing more jobs through the creation of infrastructure programs. That include water and sanitation, where we will be implementing Umkomazi water project. It includes transport, where N2 in Umtunzini Toll Plaza to Empangeni T Junction will be expedited. The Keto Reach in N3, a number of areas that are going to be developed in N3. It includes expediting all human settlement programs. Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Your time is up, sir.
So our response is not going to be only on the corruption, but we are going to resuscitate the economy. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I thank you.
The next member for 6 minutes is Honorable V.F. Tabisa of the IFP.
Yeah.
The Honorable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, and Honorable Members. When people entrust us with the responsibility of taking care of their affairs and their well-being as public representatives, they are giving to us the most sacred and diligent honor of a position of trust. They expect us to do nothing else but be trustworthy. Public office is a mandate of servanthood and a position of trust. It is a position that calls for integrity and high levels of ethical morality. The question is, do we all live up to that expectation, or we talk right and walk left? That is what this debate is about today. Can people trust this government in office? Can people trust this administration? Unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, COVID-19 has unleashed the most dishonorable behavior, the most unethical character traits amongst some in government who have been entrusted with these high positions of trust. The integrity of our government has been greatly questioned and seriously shaken. The trust deficit between the government and communities, which was already at stake, has been widely shifted. The honor of public office has been put close to non-erasable question marks and doubts in the minds of many. All this happens because of the greedy actions of people who earn millions in salaries, but instead of serving our people, they decide to line up their pockets with sweat money and blood money of our people. The topic at hand, Honorable Speaker, should not suggest that these matters are allegations. No, it is not allegations anymore. Facts have already been proven by the Auditor General and uncovered by investigations. Money belonging to the state has been squandered. When the state president announced the state of disaster in March this year, the vultures saw the opportunity of shortcuts to government funds and quickly positioned themselves to looting. Companies that never existed were quickly registered. Corruption networks were woven. COVID-19 procurement laid bare the kind of character of some rot that had but long existed in some cycles of government administration. It is not that these tendencies were new to the operations of our administration in our country and this province. But when wrongdoing does not get properly punished at the right time, and when the wrongdoing gets rewarded instead of facing its consequences, and when the wrongdoing gets protected, the result is perpetuation of the rot like we have recently seen happening. To this date, Honorable Speaker, this province is still awaiting consequences to those who helped themselves on Itala Bank funds and bought themselves farms and hotels. This dates way back. This province is still awaiting consequences to those who helped themselves to assistance that was meant for the poor in the Ntambanana Sivananda project. The Honorable MEC for Education, Honorable Mshengu, has recently announced the findings of an investigation to sanitary project corruption that happened way back in 2016. This was an honorable project, but turned sour by corruption and greed. Failure to abide by Instruction Note 5 issued by National Treasurer in this province and the abuse of COVID-19 emergency procurement provision by the Social Development Department has resulted into irregular expenditure amounting to millions of rands. Some of these irregular activities were deliberately aimed at looting state coffers and included the issuing of orders for PPEs before approval by accounting officers, inflating unit prices of items far above the amounts regulated by the National Treasury, paying service providers in advance before they have rendered the services. Notwithstanding what the Premier has recently said, the fact of the matter is this province needlessly purchased 48,000 blankets under the pretext of COVID-19, but only utilized 4,982 blankets. All these 48,000 blankets were purchased at inflated prices between 350
Honorable
and 500. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will stop there for now.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Flower.
The next member is going to be for 6 minutes, Honorable Z.M. Mngwango of the DA.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I don't normally agree with the Premier, but today I agree with the Premier that corruption is cancer and that we must work together in fighting against corruption. Honorable Speaker, this debate came at the right time as AG yesterday released a report where he was confirming COVID-19 related corruption. We now know that 22.4 billion has been looted. He gave details of these corrupt deals, including overpricing, unfair processes, which we also saw on the report that was published by the Premier a few weeks ago, that clearly prove there is fraud and corruption in our government processes. Honorable Speaker, It is also clear that the emergency procurement process for PPEs was initiated for emergency looting. Out of 22.4 billion, only 6.7 billion was actual expenditure. Anamahloni kufa abantu nibona ithuba lokuntshontsha. Ngithi asihlale emakhaya ezindlini ukuze nithole ithuba lokweba. Thina singekho kunigada. Now we are back. We are going to hold you accountable. You might hide behind load shedding, as Honorable Premier did last night, running away from National Assembly Portfolio Committee. He was asked to simply explain about the appointment of Zandile Gumede and why he is still getting paid by legislature. But the Premier decided to drop the connection, avoiding to answer the question, and later said he had load shedding. Honorable Speaker, I hope the ANC will accept criticism today and the fact that you are engineers of corruption.
Honorable Mngango.
The starting point is that the President Ramaphosa.
Honorable Mngango.
Yes.
Who's raising a point of order?
It's the Deputy Chief Whip, Honorable Speaker.
Okay.
Honorable Speaker, I'm raising on a point of order. The matter that is being debated has nothing to do with what the Premier had done yesterday. We are requesting for Honorable Mngango to kindly stick to the matter at hand and not go around issues that are not relevant to the debate. Thank you very much.
That's not Honorable Mngango, continue with your debate, sir.
Yeah.
Honorable Mngango, continue with your debate.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The good starting point is that President Ramaphosa has finally admitted that the majority of ANC leaders are corrupt, and the task ahead of the ANC is renewal, which is an internal process. We weren't going to get involved in that. People normally say, use a thief to catch a thief. I'm not sure if ANC has chosen the best thieves to serve on Integrity Committee. We had also the President appointing a group of comrades from the same pool of corrupt ministers to investigate COVID-19 related corruption. What a joke. Kodwa ke soyicela ivuthiwe somlomo. Inkinga enkulu angikaze ngiyibone ekhonkotha nethamba emlonyeni. Kobe kuqala nje okwembuzo wasosobala. Honorable Speaker, there's a huge difference between fighting corruption and acting like fighting against corruption as the Premier is doing. Honorable Speaker, ANC PEC is flip-flopping on the Gumede matter because of some of the comrades knows when she speaks, more of them will be implicated. Honorable Speaker, we want to trust the Premier, but the problem, he always do opposite from what he says. Honorable Premier, can you tell us about one of your DDGs who was acting as a head of social development during blanket scandal? Where is he now? While others are suspended, you just said yourself. How can you say you are serious about fighting corruption when you keep redeploying corrupt comrades? Honorable Speaker, the challenge we are facing is that we keep talking about corruption, but no one gets arrested for corruption amongst comrades in KZN. Honorable Speaker, I think it's time for the ANC to act and stop protecting corrupt comrades. I will just give you few case numbers, not all, and I can assure you that if law enforcement can work without fear or favor and without political interference, at least 3 cabinet ministers and few of the current sitting members will be arrested. But I will, in the meantime, Honorable Speaker, give this House a specific cases where we strongly believe they should be arrested, and some of your own comrades should step down, as you have said after your PEC. One case in point, Abakolusi, I can give you the case number if you want. Corruption case involving 2 ANC councillors and Nzala Nxumalo Regional Secretary. You are still protecting them despite evidence that they were arrested by Hawks for bribing a DA councillor. 2, at eThekwini Municipality, you have 67 implicated councillors. All of them are from the ANC. Why to protect them? In Umsunduzi, I can provide a case number if you want to. The allocation of 500 million security contract, where some members sitting here benefited, and you know them, Honorable Premier. Some officials implicated were redeployed, and one of them was a director, but was promoted to another municipality as a municipal manager, while facing both disciplinary and criminal charges. Niyabathuta, nibasephezulu. Emkanyakude, Honorable Premier, I can give a case number. The game being played by the ANC is hiding behind conflict between the MM and the mayor. This case will reveal some engineers of corruption in Mkanyakude, and some who are benefiting are in this meeting. Honorable Premier, Herikwala Municipality, I can give you a case number. This case will help you to remove corrupt individuals, and some who are benefiting are in this meeting.
Honorable Mngango. Your time is up, sir. The next member for 6 minutes is Honorable M.W. Twala of the EFF.
Thank you very much, Speaker. We as the economic freedom fighters before and during the COVID-19 have consistently warned that the ruling party and the government across all spheres of government, including here in KwaZulu-Natal, that post-1994 has weakened its capacity to deliver services, drive economic growth and development. And this has led to another form of pandemic, a pandemic of corruption. The reality is that we are dealing with two pandemics at the same time, inkohlakalo kunye ne-COVID-19. What COVID-19 has done is to show us that corruption in the ruling party is the order of the day. Nizimisela ukudela impilo zabantu abathembele kuhulumeni ukuthola isidingo nqangi. Inqobo nje uma kugcwele amaphakethe enu kunye nobhululu benu khongolose. We are thieves who have no shame and have proven beyond reasonable doubt that this government have embarrassed us today as the people of this province in the eyes of the world by stealing from the poor and vulnerable. And won't even say bury your heads in shame because anamahloni Congolese. And you reward thieves. Now kunisilethele elinye isela elantshontshe izimali zabantu zabakhokhi bentela eThekwini uZandile Gumede. We've seen umnyango ka-social development uthatha isicoco udla umhlanganiso ekuntshontshweni kwezimali zabantu. When a company by the name of Ibusapi Trading charged 1,035 for a 5 liter of sanitizer.
Honorable Twala, yes. Honorable Sanjita is raising a point of which role, Honorable Sanjita?
The honorable member, I'm raising on the point of order 52, Madam Speaker. The member is suggesting the honorable member of the House stole the money, and that's not true because there's a court case, and I don't think it's correct for a member to be called a thief, honorable member. Honorable Speaker.
Honorable.
Oh, she's a thief.
Honorable Twala, is that what you said?
Yes, I said she's alleged to have stolen imali zabakhokhi bentela eThekwini.
Oh, you said he's alleged. Honorable Sanjita, yes. I did not quite capture him. Can I refer the matter to Hansard? Because if you, listen, Honorable Twala, allow me to rule properly. Because if you did not say she is alleged, you will have to withdraw that. But if you said alleged, you will stand, that will stand. So I will have to consult Hansard, and we will bring the ruling to the next sitting. That is the ruling for today. We are going to refer the matter to Hansard and bring the rulings back to the sitting.
Sibone umnyango somlomo ka social development udla umhlanganise kutshontshweni kwezimali zabakhokhi bentela. Lapho khona inkampani egama layo Busapi Trading i-charge lo mnyango u5 liter wama sanitizer u1035 rands. Ekubeni in actual fact it cost only 250. It is the same department that paid 51 rand 75 cents for a mask, which their sister Department of Health bought a mask for a mere 7 rands and 11 rands. Siyafisa futhi ukugcizelela ukuthi akungagcini ngophenyo lokubiwa kwemali yoblanket. Akuphenye nangemali kulomnyango eyibiwe kuthiwa kuphakelwa izaguga ezikhungweni zokuhola imali kaTepe. Kuqanjwa amanga kuthiwa kwakuphakelwa ogogo nomkhulu bethu ezikhungweni. Siyafisa futhi nokwazi ukuthi ama-food parcels abantu bakithi ababethenjiswe wona abhajwe kuphi noma okwanye ahlele emzini yamakhansela kaKhongolose, ngoba phela i-food parcel awuyitholi uma ungasondelene nekhansela or i-ward committee noma ungenabo ubulungu beqembu la Khongolose. Yesterday, the Auditor General, Mr. Gimi Makwethu, released the first special report on the financial management of government's COVID-19 relief expenditure. The report made special mention of KwaZulu-Natal as one of the 3 provinces where prices charged for PPEs exceeded the price set by the National Treasury. Procurement legislation was not followed. Suppliers were paid twice, sometimes 3 times for one delivery. Suppliers who are not in the National Treasury Central database were paid millions. Suppliers were paid without proof of delivery. According to the report, KwaZulu-Natal, we paid 15 rands for aprons, when the National Treasury says each apron should cost 2 rands 9 cents. This is more than 400% higher than the prescribed price. All this was done so that people can loot, while health practitioners did not have quality sufficient PPEs. Workers had not received adequate equipment to save the lives of the poor. And our people did not have food during these difficult times. Nurses in Eddington Hospital, Matadeni Hospital, Vryheid District Hospital did not have PPEs, which led to them losing their lives. Premier, we need a turnaround strategy to curb this looting and lawlessness. The corruption will happen so as long as we continue to have the tendering system. That has proven again and again that it does not work, but steals from the poor and the marginalized Black people in particular. On the 21st of July, the Premier in his media statement stated that actions will be taken against the government officials that were involved in the irregular procurement of PPEs. This is a known scapegoat, Premier, by this government. When firstly, government officials are corrupted by you as politicians and then fired to save the same politicians. We call upon all officials who are forced to do the wrong by politicians to expose them. As EFF, we are ready to assist you expose this demagogue and half-cooked and half-baked politicians. We are not satisfied, Premier, or trust your consequent management tactics. As we are gathered here discussing corruption, when an alleged mastermind of corruption in eThekwini is here with us, under what you call managing contradictions in your party.
Honorable Fala, your time has ended. Honorable,
Thank you.
Honorable Mlodra of the NFP for 2 minutes.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, be vigilant, be ever vigilant, hold government accountable, struggle for peace and justice. said Dr. Nelson Mandela. Ngiqala kanjena somlomo ngithi awu kodwa maqabane kababa uThambo seningantshontsha noma kufiwa buka nje senidla nintshontshe nemali yomkhuhlane wobhubhane bebe abantu befa inhlupheko cha senihlule bakithi kodwa ningathini makungavuka uThambo noMandela noGwala babone lemihlolo yenu yokuhwebhana nibanga imali nidla nixoshana nenza yonke lemkhuba somlomo buka nje imali yoblanket ephindaphindiwe ngokwamanani umnyango waka-education kwaphindwa imali emathangini amanzi zonke lezi zinto zidinga ukucutshungulwa bese kuxoshwa abantu ukuze nibe msulwa zigezeni maqabane kaThambo kulomkhuhlane onihlasele. Thank you somlomo.
Thank you. The next member is for 8 minutes for ANC, the Honorable Nsimelane Zulu, MEC for Health. Honorable MEC for Health.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to actually engage and debate in this debate that is so important, Speaker. Ngiyafisa nje kodwa uqale ngimangale ngibabaze ngimzwile umhlonishwa Honorable Rogers ethi cha impela ama department onke KwaZulu-Natal kutholakala inkohlakalo futhi there's corruption that is being investigated. When we know of the investigations that Premier was talking about and there have already been actions are implemented. Kuyasimangaza ke lokho Chair. Kodwa kusitshela ukuthi le debate Honorable Rogers ayilethile is not as honest as he is implying it for it to be. It is not as clean as he is implying for it to be. Instead, he is just playing to the gallery. However, as the government of the African National Congress, Chairperson, we are very much committed to a clean government. We are very much committed to a capable state as okwazi ukuthi implement ama decision and change the lives of our people. And the fact that we are committed, Speaker, is an indication or the report that was issued by the Premier of staff, social development that was investigated and some of them were suspended and consequence management was implemented by MEC Khoza, Chairperson, Speaker. That is a clear indication that this government is committed to a clean governance. Speaker, outside of ukuthi MEC Khoza azahambe yena athathe laba babe akade be accused and were investigated abamikise a police station, I really don't see what else she could have done except for what she did, and she really implemented what needed to be done. Anyway, Speaker, let me just get to what I needed or what I wanted to say. Needless to say that the past few months have been quite tough for all of us as a country, as a province, but has been tough in particular for the frontline workers of the Department of Health, primarily because they are the food soldiers and they are the people who are actually fighting this pandemic. We remain extremely grateful, Speaker, to the Honorable Premier and the entire Executive Council for all the support that they provided to the Department of Health through this pandemic. And I do believe if we had not worked as one government and as one leadership, we would not have achieved the gains that we achieved through this COVID-19 crisis. As of yesterday, Speaker, we had 113,000 positive, 113,000 positive COVID-19 cases, of which 10,000 are still active, and sadly, 2,164 people have lost their lives to this pandemic. However, on the brighter side, Chairperson, more than 100,000 people have recovered. The number of COVID-19 infections have also gone down significantly in this province. We've gone from registering up to 3.9 thousand new cases at some point during our peak in the middle of July to an average of 200. As of yesterday, Speaker, we only have 231 infections in this province of KwaZulu-Natal. We are currently working and preparing for what is said to be a possible second wave of the infections, Chairperson. As the Speaker, as the Premier correctly indicated, we are calling on our people to be safe, and we are calling on everyone to make sure that we adhere to the regulations so that we actually do not see the second wave or it doesn't come to fruition. That is why we are also gearing our communication activities in such a way that we mobilize our people to ensure that they implement safety precautions. Speaker, when we were suddenly confronted by the harsh realities of the deadly COVID-19, we suddenly had to reprioritize the recreation of capacity in terms of human resource and infrastructure within our facilities. And in the process of doing that, we repurposed our structures, Speaker, we repurposed our hospitals, and we didn't just repurpose, but we also put up field hospitals, which included the erection of temporary structures, which were needed because according to the national modelers, we were expected to get a huge number of cases, which are more than 350,000 in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and at the time, we did not have as many beds as were required. Speaker, the PPE in hospitals and the supply of those, even before the arrival of COVID-19 in this country, personal protective equipment has always been an indispensable tool of trade within the health sector. Of course, the coming of COVID, Chairperson, meant that we needed to double and in other instances, triple the procurement of these particular tools of trade for the health workers in particular. In preparation for the upcoming COVID-19...
Point of order, Speaker.
Honorable MEC, there's someone raising a point of order. I think it's Honorable Dr. Virana.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. I rise on Rule 55, relevance. This debate is on corruption. The MEC is a debate too late. The health debate just finished. Thank you, Speaker.
Actually, it's you who is raising an irrelevant rule. Rule number 55, I must read it for you. Irrelevance or reputation. The presiding officer may, after having called attention to the conduct of a member who persists in irrelevance or reputation of arguments, direct the member to discontinue his or her speech. This rule is amongst the few rules that are empowering the presiding officer, not the member. Continue, Honorable MEC.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you for the protection. Speaker, in fighting for COVID-19, we had a responsibility as the Department of Health to ensure that our members and our frontline workers are ready to battle or to face the battle that we are about to face, and in ensuring that they had the required weapons of choice. And Speaker, it's important for me to raise this because this is where the issue of National Treasury Note 3 that speaks to the emergency procurement came in. Speaker, it goes without saying that in relation to the work that we needed to do, both in relation to buying of PPEs and getting ready in our facilities, we needed to get a different process of working and of procuring. That is where Note 3 came in from National Treasury, which empowered and guided all organs of state on how to implement the emergency procurement processes. Having said that, Speaker, as this government, we made sure and we continue to make sure and be committed that even Treasury Note 3 should have been followed and should have been followed properly. And where we think there could be people abused the system, and we are very much aware that there are cases that the system could have been abused. We are willing and we are working on ensuring that consequence management is going to be implemented. Speaker, it is not correct for political parties to utilize a issue like COVID-19, a issue of death, as a football for people or to kick each other in the field. This is a matter of life and death. By the way, Speaker, we are not beyond the peak as yet. We are expecting a new wave that might come. And if we continue playing with the lives of our people, this new wave that will come will be extremely detrimental. So having said that, Speaker, we are committed and we were committed to following processes, and we made a commitment that those processes that were not followed properly, there will be consequences. And I don't think it should be members who make vague statements and say politicians are the ones who are instructing officials, when actually as politicians, we are not the ones who are signing. However, we accept that as political leaders, we are actually at the helm, and the buck stops with us. Speaker, that is why we are committed that where there has been any wrongdoing, we are going to uproot that, we are going to act on it, because no one must benefit from the difficulties that our people faced. Thank you very much.
Member. Thank you. The next member for 2 minutes is Honorable Esther Rajbansi of the MF.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, Honourable Members. The MF will focus on the COVID-19 pandemic. Our workplace in both the public and private sectors is riskier than before, and the use of appropriate PPEs saves lives. In each department, we have to ask, do we have enough PPEs? Is it the right kind, up to date, and at the right price? The MF acknowledges that this is a crisis, but our planning should never encourage dishonesty, and this is the crux of this essential debate. And we appreciate the AG's report and interventions and recommendations. Given this background, the Minority Front has requested full reports on PPE tenders in health in view of the fact that civil servants, especially essential frontline workers like our teachers and healthcare workers, have fallen ill and even succumbed. The source of the infection is one thing, Honourable Speaker. The provision of appropriate PPEs is another, whilst workplace infection prevention and personal safety is yet another. With this background, the DA's motion is important at this critical juncture, and in terms of supply chain irregularities, skewed PPE distribution, poor quality of PPEs, and inflated pricing by PPE to entrepreneurs. Under these circumstances, will KwaZulu-Natal get value for money? And that's the question. The MF, however, believes that we can still afford the executive more time until appropriation this November before making concrete statements. Safe to say that PPEs are life-saving for our workplace heroes as well as vulnerable citizens. Therefore, 3 things are important. Firstly, we must acknowledge that our cabinet is practicing we do right even when no one is looking. Secondly, that entrepreneurs who value their privileges over principles end up losing both. And those that we employ in supply chain management and senior management must be carefully recruited on the basis of having learned to obey in order to command in such crucial positions. Honourable Premier, notwithstanding your appreciated interventions currently, we will be endangered, but we appreciate that the investigations have started. Thank you.
The next member for 2 minutes is Honorable M.E. Pakati of the ATM. He is not in the House. Followed by the next member for another 2 minutes, Honorable S.E. Manwele of the ACDP, who's also not in the House. Then we'll go for another 2 minutes for Honorable Z.M. Mwango of the DA. Honorable Mwango, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, firstly, I want to agree with other speakers around the fight on corruption, but I'm surprised that Honourable MEC Smilane Zulu is saying to us we are playing during pandemic, while they are stealing during pandemic. What a wow. I'm very surprised that MEC, you are happy that you are stealing as the ANC during the pandemic, but blaming us for playing. It's very, very interesting. But I want to continue from where I left, Speaker, and say, if the ANC and the Premier is serious about corruption, I really would like you to focus on these specific examples. I want you to go back in Umgeni municipality. And Honorable Premier, I've got case numbers. I want to challenge you, if you want them, I'll give it to you, that you need to look and ensure that people are protected in Umgeni municipality, because those who are exposing corruption are being intimidated, and the case has been opened there. In Umgungundlovu district municipality, we have a contract of a company that supplies water tankers. They actually supply 25 tankers, but the council is paying for 50 trucks. The question is, what is going on there? Inkinga abantu abadlayo sihleli nabo la emhlanganweni. Honorable Premier, can you also tell us about the funding of the mall in Bamshela? That doesn't exist, although money was spent 2 years ago while you were still an MEC for economic development. Are you worried about the resignation of a CEO yesterday? You must tell us. The investigation on strategic development, Honorable Premier, you released a 4th forensic report on blankets. Can you tell us about other reports, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd report since you took over? Can you also further do investigation on allegations that MEC's sons benefited from blankets?
Your time is up.
Oh,
the next speaker for 4 minutes is Honorable VF Kabisa of the IFP.
Honorable Speaker, I ended when I said, notwithstanding what the Premier has recently said regarding DSD blanket saga, all the 48,000 blankets were purchased at an inflated prices. This is part of the rot and cancer in our province. The COVID-preneurs of this province were running around like mad animals behind services to be rendered by the departments for COVID-19 compliance, especially education and social development departments. When the news of inflated prices started surfacing out about the Jojo tanks of the Department of Education, to the effect that education was purchasing Jojo tanks at 170,000 each. On 18 June 2020, the Department of Education issued a statement denying this. In their statement, the department stated that they were spending 28,000 per 5,000 liter water tank. The next day, on 19 June 2020, Rand Water issued a statement setting the record straight on the price of the 5,000 liter water tank as between 4,500 and 5,400. Rand Water refuted the story of 28,000. This is the rot in our province. Be that as it may, it has to be noted that to this day, Honorable Speaker, most of these water tanks have never been filled with water because the COVID-preneurs contracted to supply them just simply left the tanks on the floor without any stand. These people were paid full money to provide a service, but they never completed it. Honorable Speaker, South Africa is full of a drama when it comes to mismanagement of resources, mismanagement of funds, and corruption. Food parcels that were intended for the vulnerable and poor people, some of it ended up in the household of councillors and their friends and relatives. Yet the destitute for whom this was meant remained hungry and hopeless. Punishment for crimes committed in our administration is very weak or non-existent. When one has committed an offense in this one department or level of government, they simply dig holes and disappear. A few weeks or months later, they submarine themselves and resurface in another department or government level. Because this has been allowed to continue unabated, it has now become a normal practice and a habit to all culprits in our administration. Just yesterday, Honorable Speaker, the Auditor General issued the result of his audit of the COVID-19 500 billion rand funds. In his own words, he said, The audit had uncovered frightening revelations of mismanaged spending. Under these circumstances, Honorable Speaker, as we move forward, we need to be hard on greedy people who loot the state. We must walk the talk. Otherwise, this legislature will remain accused number one on corruption. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Bulawayo.
The next speaker, the candidate is for the ANC, Honorable K.I. Mshengu, the MEC Education. Honorable Mshengu.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, and Honorable members of the Legislature. Today we are called to debate on what is termed a matter of public importance relating to allegations of corruptions with regard to COVID-19 expenditure. As is always the case, we are not scared to engage in any debate, even when we know that it is not intended to serve any public good, but nefarious intentions of the initiators. The whole country started grappling with the issue of COVID-19 as early as March. However, the initiators of the debate today never saw COVID-19 as a disease to be a matter of public importance. They've had to wait for the related expenditure and allegations of corruption for COVID-19 to be a matter of public importance in their perverted standard of measure. In essence, as COVID-19 threatened to obliterate humanity, to them it was never a matter of public importance, probably because the constituency that they serve has access to better healthcare facilities. It is true that COVID-19 started as a health issue, but evolved to be an economic conundrum in the world at large. In South Africa, it went a step further to be a potent weapon to entrench inequalities. With the initiators of this debate watching with glee because their agenda of reversing the gains of freedom was being assisted. It is for this reason that they remain unflinchingly opposed, amongst other things, to the opening of schools. The children of their constituency continue to receive lessons through visual lessons, while the children of the working class, the constituency whose exploitation they live on, continue to be denied access to education. Again, they saw nothing as of public importance. As we spend countless hours and sleepless nights trying to find better ways of opening schools in a safe environment, the initiators of this debate today engaged in a spirited drive to tarnish our efforts and sought to mobilize the parents to withhold their kids from going to schools. They concocted all sorts of theories, including a malicious one that was sending kids to a slaughterhouse, in spite of the fact that not a single kid has lost his or her life.
Honorable MEC, there is someone calling for a point of order.
Madam Speaker, it's Imran Kika.
Yes, Honorable.
I rise on Rule 2532G.
Let's go there, sir.
The Honourable Member speaking now suggests, the Honourable Member, may I proceed, Madam Speaker?
Yes.
The Honourable Member is suggesting that the initiators of the motion...
No. Take it back. Which rule are you raising on? 252?
253.
Okay.
2G.
Yes, sir.
The Honourable Member is suggesting that the initiators of the motion, that is the Democratic Alliance, was amongst those provinces or where we govern is suggesting that the Democratic Alliance was opposed to the opening of schools. And he's repeated that more than once. This is misleading because the Democratic Alliance was the first province to ensure that schools were open before any other province. And he is incorrect and misleading the House.
Honorable Dr. Kika. Honorable Dr. Kika.
I'm listening, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker.
On which committee or on which sitting of the House is the report being tabled by the Honorable MEC was tabled before?
Madam Speaker, he is making reference to it now in the House.
The Honorable MEC is debating, and that rule is saying deliberately giving false information or evidence or producing a false document or report to the House or any of its committees regarding material facts on an issue. Which issue then that he is giving false information on?
He is giving misinformation about the opening of schools, where he's suggesting that
there is a point of a debate, my honorable member.
But the information is misleading, Madam Chair.
Him to debate. Allow him to debate. Your party was allowed to debate, my honorable member. There is a point of
information
debate,
is false, Madam Speaker. But anyway.
Honorable Mr. Continue with your debate, sir.
Let me repeat it, Honorable Speaker. The initiators concocted all sorts of theories, including a malicious one that was sending kids to a slaughterhouse. Disregarding available scientific evidence, they sought to exploit the genuine fears of our parents to serve their selfish.
I'm going to rise on Rule 52 this time.
However, like our people defeated their forebears.
Honorable Kika, you are out of order. Switch off your mic whilst there is a speaker on the podium. Continue, honorable member.
I'm rising on Rule 52 this time, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Rise on Rule 52 this time.
He says that we disregarded scientific evidence.
52 has got about 4 subsections A, B, C, D.
52A.
Which one?
52A.
Come and bring your point of order, sir.
I'm going to repeat my point of order. The Honorable MEC on the podium is saying that information was concocted to prevent and he says it was scientific evidence was disregarded by the initiators of the motion. This is not correct, Madam Speaker.
That
this
is not
absolutely false.
That you are still getting into the debate. That is not a point of order. Take the speaker's list. Honorable Rogers is going to come back and deal with points of debate. Allow the speaker to come and debate and allow the one on the podium to debate.
But he shouldn't be giving false information, Madam Speaker.
But you also shouldn't be debating from where you are sitting. And if you want to oppose a ruling, do that in the proper way that the rules allow you to do, my good doctor. Can we continue with the debate, Honorable Member Mshengu?
Thank you once again, Madam Speaker. Like our people defeated their forebears who presided over the repressive and murderous apartheid, they again saw them for what they are, and in their numbers released their kids to schools. I'm not surprised by this posture, for out of nothing, nothing comes. This pervasive posture by the initiators of this debate should be understood for what it is, and it is better explained in one of the most famous tragedies by William Shakespeare, the tragedy of Hamlet, which depicts Prince Hamlet and his revenge against his uncle who had murdered Hamlet's father in order to seize the throne. And this he had to say, "I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night, and for the day confined to fast fires, till the foul crimes done in my days of fortune of nature are burnt and purged away. The ghost of the apartheid colonialism is alive, and probably we are coexisting with it in this house. But exactly why has the matter of all of a sudden become the public importance from the initiators? And the answer is simple. With the surfacing of allegations of corruption related to procurement of COVID-19 essentials, they have woken from their slumber and remembered their duty of always projecting the democratic government, enjoying the confidence of the overwhelming majority of our people as corrupt and incapable of providing sound leadership. In particular, they were desperately hoping that they will find our names as having personally benefited in procurement. But equally, we now know, Chair, that they are not comfortable with the fact that over 50% of companies who provided a service are from African or are run by Africans.
Honorable MC, please. Someone is having a mic that is on.
Very, very big battle. It takes all of us to play and
your mic is on. I think switch off the mic.
to us for it to respect us.
Off the mic of the MEC. You can continue, Honorable Mshengu.
In essence, Madam Speaker, the initiators have, through this debate, actually sought to run a public trial against the democratic government. Madam Speaker, we remain committed to the spirited fight against any forms of corruption inside and outside government. We do so because we know that for our revolution to succeed, each and every cent must go to the service of the people. Our government has led and continues to lead from the front. And in this regard, when corrupt practices have been identified, we have not hesitated to act. And the Premier has enunciated on a number of investigations that have been done and people who have suspended. I can confidently say, Chair and Madam Speaker, that as we debate today, and having received the report of the Auditor General, which in the Department of Education identified that there were instances of cover coating, instances where some companies were not on the database, on the database. We have sought to identify the culprits, and I can tell the public, Honorable Speaker, that by Friday, the culprits will be suspended from the department pending disciplinary processes. In mounting the fight against corruption, this democratic government has unleashed at least 8 law enforcement institutions to probe all unsavory acts, even those that have not surfaced to the public. It is only a government of the ANC that can do that. It is only the ANC that has publicly declared that any of its leaders who stand in charge of corruption should step aside so that we insulate the brand ANC from objectionable actions of its individual members. No other organization has or will do that because for them, the fight against corruption is not an objective fight, but a PR exercise. That is why the initiators says nothing about the probe in the Western Cape Department of Education of 100 million PPEs, the 38 million of PPEs that were given to one company in the Western Cape. There's always one thing that, again, Madam Speaker, that has never been put under scrutiny insofar as corruption is concerned. And that is the political affiliation of officials who are facing charges of corruption. Because they are serving in the state, they are always presumed to be members of the ANC. Reality is a number of officials found with their hands in the cookie jar are either apolitical or are serving or affiliated to opposition parties. Corruption should not be a political football. We should always and at all material time unite in the fight against corruption. And we must fight, or rather we must see and fight corruption even if it implicates those that we love the most. A thief is a thief and must be treated as such, whether in the ANC, in the IFP, in the DA, EFF, or any other party or organ of society. We must, if there's one thing that must unite us across political lines, is the fight against the corruption, and we must uproot it wherever it manifests itself. So, Madam Speaker, we welcome the debate, but we also want to challenge the initiators of this debate, not to be confined into serving the past. We know that the ghost of apartheid is still with us, but we want to plead with their conscience that work with the democratic government to serve the people of KwaZulu-Natal. Let us not initiate matters and term them public debates only when it suits us. COVID-19 is a disease that is threatening humanity. And as I said earlier on, never at once did the initiators sought to see this as a matter of public opinion, of public importance. We in government and working together with the people of KwaZulu-Natal have worked throughout this throughout the time when this pandemic visited our country to ensure that we save the lives of our people. The things that we have purchased have indeed gone a long way in saving the lives of our people, notwithstanding the allegations and the abuse.
Your time has lapsed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yeah. The next speaker who will respond to the debate, the mover of the debate, the Honorable Whip of the DA, Honorable F.A. Rogers, for 5 minutes. Honorable Rogers.
And thank you to all the members that partook in the debate. It certainly was a lively debate, and hopefully it'll go some way to deal with the scourge. I think it's important at this stage. There's a lot of denial still in this room about corruption. I don't think we must forget the fact that the president of the ANC wrote to every single member of the African National Congress and said to him, "We have a problem." That was the president of the ANC that wrote to all the members of the ANC. He didn't write in his capacity as president of South Africa to all of us. He wrote to the comrades. So I think we must take note of that. And I think we must accept that that is where the problem lies. The fact that the past president then spoke from the grave, according to Tito Mboweni, in his tweet, that's besides the point. But I think that's the starting place where we need to start. You know, the Premier and Honourable Premier, I know you had to leave early, so I'm sorry that you're not here. But you say the right things, and you hear what I want to hear. But the problem is, it's super.
True. Let's stop the clock.
Okay.
Department of Social Development. Let me tell you that I think the investigations that you've done are superficial. I have a document from a senior official in the Department of Social Development that has highlighted certain problems with the MEC and alleged that the MEC has got involved with supply chain management, as in fact moved officials around in supply chain management and appointed people. Now that's what we want investigated. We're not saying every MEC is guilty, as the MEC of Education said, certainly not. But where we have a department where we're getting information that senior officials and members of the executive are involved, then it must be investigated. Honourable Zwakele raised the fact that there were 4 investigations from the Premier's department into social development. Of them, only 2 have been released. 2 remain unreleased. Now again, the whistleblower that's reported to me states that in the 2 unreleased documents, the MEC is in fact fingered. Now, if she's innocent, let's look at these reports. Let's get them. Let's deal with it. And then we can move on and not get bogged down. But it appears as though there's accountability and selective accountability, which is something that we can't deal with. MEC, the talk in the corridors is that you don't run the Premier's department. The DG in your department runs that department, and you listen to her. Now, you must remember this DG came from Mpumalanga and had all sorts of accusations against her. In fact, she was found guilty by the public protector. Now, here is a person, probably the most senior next to you, in our state of in our capable state, and there's questions being asked. There's questions being asked about, in fact, senior members of your staff that aren't vetted. Give us this information, Premier. Give us the indication that all senior members in your department have in fact been vetted. Then I'm going to move on to Honourable Mshengu. Honourable Mshengu, firstly, let me say, I love your DA jacket. You're just missing the DA logo on it. But the blue actually suits you, and it suits your eyes. Let me, on a serious note, tell you that when you tell me the mover of this motion is here to grandstand, I had a family member that died of COVID-19. So your comments, quite frankly, sir, are out of place. And again, it just shows the arrogance of the ANC. The minute you see a white person challenging you as the African National Congress, you'd rather play the race card. You'd rather say, I'm here to grandstand. I'm not here to grandstand, MEC Mshengu. I'm here to protect the public purse of the people. There is no denial that money was stolen. Your own president told you that. So you need to take that into account. And if you could put that much energy into your department, the Department of Education, perhaps we'd get some better results out of your department. And let me help you here. I don't know what planet you live on, MEC Mshengu, but SAT2 was in fact one of the key players that told you not to open schools, not the DA. In fact, your government, your National Department of Education, told the Western Cape not to open schools. It was your alliance partner, SAT2, that said don't open schools. So if anyone's grandstanding here, and if anyone's got the facts wrong, MEC of Education, it's you. It's no one else.
Thank you, Honorable Rogers. The time has ended. Honorable members, this is the end of the debate. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker.
Oh, who's calling for Honorable Speaker now? Who's calling for Honorable?
It's the Deputy Chief Whip, Honorable Speaker.
Oh, yes, Deputy Chief Whip. Am I out of...
Before you close, Honorable Speaker, may I kindly crave for your indulgence?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I'd like to formally table the terms of reference, Honorable Speaker, of the motion without notice that was tabled earlier on for the House. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Oh, thank you, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip, for tabling the terms of reference. They will go into the record. Thank you, Honorable Members. Niziphathe kahle. I want to request all members that participated in today's debate since morning and to please not forget to forward the copies of their debates via email to parrot@kznleg.gov.za. Parrot spelled PARROTTA. We are requesting you, honorable members, so that they all go into record. Please do email your debate. All of you.
Can you repeat Parrot, Speaker?
Parrot is PARROTTA at kznleg.gov.za. We also request WIP to ensure that all their party speakers submit the debates today by close of business today. All party whips must ensure that they are submitted by end of business today. Honorable members, thank you for your participation and for having spent the day behaving so well. We wish you to continue adhering to the lockdown regulations in the areas that you stay in and also continuing to teach the people in your constituencies that even though we are at level 2, the virus is still out there. People must continue to take care of themselves, observe the regulations, and ensure that they keep themselves safe. Before I close, can I check, Premier, is there any announcement you would like to make? Is Premier back from Nehal?
Sehambi, load shedding.
Oh.
Sebalekile.
Honorable members, the House is adjourned.
Siyathokoza Somlomo.
Ambola